Hello, the year is 2008, and we're looking back at Spaced. This was shot in 1999. I'm Edgar Wright, the director of Spaced, and I'd like to hand you over to a young lady.
Stop it.
Not so much anymore.
Oh, I'm younger than you, quite significantly
True
younger
say,
than you.
checkmate, well done.
My name's Jessica Hines, née Stevenson. I was Stevenson when we made this. I'm now Hines.
Oh.
But I'm still the same person. I played Daisy in the show and
co-wrote it.
And co-wrote it, sure.
Pick yourself up.
I'm Simon Pegg, and I have been for a long time. And I co-wrote and appear in the show with Jessica, which was directed by Edgar. But who's this in the corner?
Hang on a minute.
Hang on a second. Somebody else is in here.
I watched the show. I was one of the guys that I didn't even buy the DVD. It was given to me. The British one, not the American one. I imagine I'll get this one free as well.
This is the very talented writer, director, actor, raconteur.
Too sweet.
Raconteur is a good one. You are a raconteur.
Raconteur is the term people use for me when they're like, well, he's not quite a filmmaker because he's not very good at it. And he's not an actor. He's not
really
good at that either.
stories.
Like, let's just call him Raconteur. Like, if Match Game existed still, the game show, I don't know if you guys ever had that.
Yeah, we called it Blind Date in the UK.
It would be that. It would be. I would be a panel guest on a game show with people like Nipsey Russell and Paul Lynde.
Maybe Match Game was blankety blank. I was thinking of the
Match
dating
Game
game.
is the one. Yeah, Match Game is like John
Blankety blank.
showed Mary his blank.
Yeah,
Yes.
blankety blank.
Blankety
I have
blank.
to point out for the record, this is Kevin Smith talking.
How are you? I have to point out for the record that I just got back from shooting a flag, and my plan was to not leave the house for 1 month straight. Like, I was really, and even more so, I did not want to leave the certain floor of my house where my bedroom is for 1 month. I really wanted to try to Howard Hughes it and just not leave the house.
Piss in bottles.
I did. I wanted to piss in bottles, walk around in tissue boxes, grow my fingernails really long, grow my hair long, but I'm balding on top, so that was not going to happen. But I put on like 30 pounds when I was making the movie, and I was like, I can't go out. I can't show myself. And not like I go out anywhere where people, I'd hit a club and be like, hey, Smith, you gained weight. But just like the normal haunts, like if I went to eat, people like the same restaurants I go to, people would be like, what the fuck happened to you? So I was like, I'm not going to leave the house for 1 month straight. The only thing that could get me to leave the house is doing this. I love the show. You know how much
I kind of felt bad when I spoke to you this morning,
You
Kevin.
should feel fucking bad, dude. You shit all over my plan, dude. It was a flurry of fucking calls and texts where I'm like,
I know.
Well, he really wants me to come.
He'd already filled 4 bottles. He's got to start again now.
I was almost on the verge of being like, bring the equipment to my house and we can do it there.
Yeah.
I won't do it.
You would have seen me walking around in like a muumuu and a blanket and shit like that.
It's worth pointing out for the record that the studio that we're in is called Margarita Mix, and there's no reason why anybody shouldn't have a Margarita Mix studio in their home.
I agree completely.
Damn straight.
And it kind of feels like my house as well. There's a nice flat screen. There are microphones everywhere.
Do you want some bottles?
Absolutely. I will have to piss in about 5 minutes, and hopefully you guys can all just turn away while it happens.
You can do it live in the commentary. It'll be good.
It might be worthwhile.
Here's the first Star Wars reference, Kevin, which obviously a shared passion of ours.
You guys, Star Wars references. Wow, that's a...
And I think, actually...
Whoever thought of doing that? That's genius. What year was this made?
It was
1999.
Oh, 99. I was doing it back in 94.
It was prior to Phantom Menace, because we watched the trailer when we were shooting one of the shows and thought, this looks fucking great.
Right.
Wrong.
And then then you grew up.
But I remember watching Clerks and seeing that lovely, the Death Star speech and thinking and loving it because,
I remember you telling me about
did
it. You were so excited. You were like, you've got to see this film.
Yeah, but it's that thing of connect. I mean, the whole thing about the show was that we wanted to connect with people on a really minute level all the time, and things like that, really did that. And so in that respect, you were a great inspiration.
Wasn't there? You told me at one point. Weren't you guys at a Q&A for Chasing Amy?
Yeah, I asked you a question.
Yes,
1990.
That's so
must have
fucked
been.
up.
I think it must have been whilst you guys were writing Spaced.
Because that was 97. 97 was Chasing Amy, so I was over in the UK
Yeah.
like in May of 97, May, June. So.
We'd already done, the three of us had done this show called Asylum, and then which was 1997.
Can I do the commentary track for that as well?
Yes, absolutely.
We have to do it today, though.
Yes, you have to do it before you fill your next bottle of piss.
Totally. Give me a month, dude. When I lose 30 pounds, I'll be a much better commentator. Thinner. I'll sound thinner.
But yeah, I remember me and Simon and Julian Barrett, who's a very good comedy actor,
Who's
and
in the Boosh, if you're a
Karen,
fan of
who's one of the
British comedy.
producers, came to see you doing a Q&A for Chasing Amy in Richmond.
That's
Now,
right.
and where's that?
That is in South London. Space is very much a North London show.
Yeah.
But we-
Was it Richmond or was it Brixton?
It was Richmond.
It was.
Definitely Richmond.
I said to you, Kevin, your characters are very rounded. Where did you get the inspiration for them? Or something equally as crass
With your
as
voice
that?
breaking.
And
I was
yeah,
younger
did
then,
your
it was
voice
higher.
break? Did I come back with rounded? Fuck you.
Yeah,
Is
you
that
did.
a fat joke?
Screw you, Nick.
Wait a
Fuck
second.
you,
so
kid.
let me just to go back. Let me understand London. So we were where for that? Where's Richmond?
Like southwest London, you were.
Southwest London, and
Yeah.
where this takes place in
North London.
North London.
Very.
North London is kind of a huge, sort of sprawling kind of place, isn't it? It's very, very difficult to.
If you're an
there's no
American
obvious-
planning to move to London, north is better than south, I'd say.
Yeah,
where's the big department store? It's got a bunch.
That's central. Like
Central,
Oxford
like,
Street.
which is
Central, but,
north as well.
but on the north side of the river, because
North of the
basically
river,
the Thames kind of divides London, so that the north is obviously above and south is below.
So if I all right, this where space takes place.
Tufnell Park, which is in North London, which is a very sort of leafy kind of
Yeah.
suburby kind of bit of
a
North
lot of
London.
teachers, a lot of English
so
teachers.
it's not the bad side of the tracks, the wrong
No,
side of the
no.
tracks.
It's
I
very-
could probably kick someone's ass there.
Easily.
Right. Where
Look,
could
kind of
not kick someone's
If you want to go
ass?
for a rumble, go to North London. Seriously.
Because I'd be the strong
Because they're
guy?
all sort of, green tea drinking, sandal
Good
wearing.
to know. Where would I get my ass kicked?
Ooh, everywhere else.
Really, it's that bad. They're
Some
Tottenham.
parts of South London, Tottenham. Oh, there are bad parts of North London. I have to
Gillian
say,
Anderson there.
I just worked with Gillian, and the first thing that the director who was directing the film said to her was, "Have you seen Space where Simon's masturbating over you?" And I blushed so much my ears bled. It was just terrible, and she appreciated it, I think.
That's one of the things. Stuff like references to the X-Files, of course, references to Star Wars, all the pop culture stuff. But was a real turn on when I saw the show. But what really got me was you guys wore the same fucking shirts as I wore, like all the graffiti
Flash
design
stuff
shirts, the
and-
Flash
yeah,
shirts.
yeah.
That fucking blew my mind.
Oh, look
look
at
at
me.
young Jess.
Oh, that's me.
Well, that was the thing of like that kind of that shared universe of people who were into that kind of stuff was global. Everyone was kind of. It was like the same
Michelle
in a
from
way.
EastEnders there.
Oh, Michelle from EastEnders. You should point out.
Yeah.
Jessica.
Jessica explained to the American viewers EastEnders.
EastEnders is a long-running drama show set in the East End, and the major dialogue is, "What about me? How do you think I feel?" and that's what people say to each other.
They say half an hour a lot as well,
repeatedly,
don't they?
maybe with slight different intonation.
Yeah.
Is it daytime or nighttime?
Nighttime.
It's nighttime, but
How long?
it's
How many
massive.
years?
It's got a lot of fans.
85. It started. It's a soap, isn't it? But not in the same
It's
kind
a
of way.
kind, yeah, it's a soap. Yeah, it's a soap.
You
And,
have daytime soaps over here, but in the UK, the soaps are like the two biggest shows.
And Michelle
EastEnders
was a
and
big.
Coronation Street. are the
Michelle
two
was
biggest
sort of a
shows.
big. I mean, I think she then went on and started directing, but kind of when she was kind of a teenager and then in her 20s and 30s, she was a big television actress. She was in Grange Hill.
Susan Tully.
Susan Tully. She was in Grange Hill, which was a massive children's TV show, and then she went on to play a major part in EastEnders. Michelle from EastEnders.
Her storyline
And
was
I always
responsible-
remember her saying she'd got a third, which is a mark for a university degree.
And her storyline basically kicked off the massive popularity of the show, wasn't it? Because
Yeah.
she got pregnant by Dirty Den.
Yeah, which
You
is
guys have
It
lost
happens.
the entire fucking
Yeah.
audience. Nobody gives a shit. here.
Goodbye, America.
No wonder this DVD
I
has
actually-
taken 8 years to come out.
No doubt. They're just going to talk about British soaps the whole time.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Before you said, was it nay or knee that you used?
What,
When you
nay?
used-
I said
knee.
nay. Is it knee? Is it
I don't
knee?
know,
Is it
that's
nigh?
what-
It
Is
has
it
an
loo?
accent, so maybe it's
Does
nay.
it matter?
What
Does
is it?
matter?
What does it mean exactly?
It means.
Used
I
to
mean,
be.
I know what it
means-
means, but like, what is the
It's a
definition?
Scottish term
Is it really?
that I'm making it up now. It's a Scottish term for a past. It's for a past identity.
Okay.
Its origins are. I have no idea. I
And
don't
your
know.
identity has changed in these last 8 years, right?
As a person, as a personality, I have
person.
changed. I have changed.
grown up a
Yeah,
bit.
sure.
Is knee something
And we
that
all.
Scottish
I'm bolder.
superheroes
You're
use?
bolder, slightly. You're a little
Don't say
bit more
fatter,
serious.
please.
No,
So wait, you got married.
I got married about 5 years ago, and then just decided I'd always wanted to change my name and then change my name because I just suddenly, it was like a kind of moment. I suddenly had a wave of like, I'm gonna do it. I always said I wanted to, and now I'm actually gonna
So
do
you
it.
did the show as Stevenson.
I did the show as Stevenson.
And now, if you act, you're as Hines.
I'm as Hines. Everything's Hines. It's
Does
all
that
Hines.
fuck with you at all? With your career? People are like, who's that?
It doesn't fuck with me. No.
It doesn't fuck with
It doesn't
like
fuck with me.
casting, or people like, If you were,
I thought it was Jessica Stevenson.
Yeah, we'd hire you in a heartbeat, but we don't know who you are.
You don't know who you are. I don't know. I never really considered that. I mean, maybe I should have.
Why did you want to lose Stevenson?
I don't know.
Did you just love your man that much?
No. Well, I want to have the same name as my kids.
Why did you betray your feminism?
Is that what you feel? Isn't it very interesting how people think that?
No, growing up, everyone did that. Like, of course, my mother changed her name to my father's name and stuff. But when I got married, my old lady would not change her name for the life of her. And it never bothered me. I didn't give a shit. I was
think it depends. It depends.
So when I meet women that do, I'm like, wow, what a gender traitor you are.
I think it depends. It depends on the name. I think it's different for everybody. I know someone who really loved her name. Her family name meant a lot to her, whereas her soon-to-be husband wasn't really particularly interested in keeping his name. He was like, take it or leave it. So they actually changed their family name to her name because it meant something to her. She wanted to keep that name, and and I think it's different. And the double barrel thing never really interested us. It wasn't really an option. And we had all the kids were Hines.
A hyphenate or
a hyphen thing. We
like
could have Hines Stevenson.
I
mean, I've always thought there were too many S's in
climber.
Stevenson anyway. No, but I've always thought that my whole name had too many S's anyway. I never really liked it.
There is a lot.
There's too many S's.
If
too
God
much, it was
forbid
too
you
bad.
married a lisper.
Exactly. Jessica Stevenson.
Did you just want to go from multisyllabic to single syllable?
Yeah, there was partly that, but also because all my children were Hines. I wanted to be Hines. I wanted to belong to Hines. Exactly. You used to call me Jessica Stevenson, didn't you? But yeah, I just wanted to be Hines. And my sister's married name, my mother is her maiden name. My parents are divorced, so I just thought Stevenson felt like a name that I just wasn't really attached to. And seeing as I had a husband and 3 children who were all called Hines, I wanted to be part of that gang. In name.
But the 3 children we were talking about before, they didn't. You've been married for 5 years. You didn't have 3 kids in 5 years.
No, I've had 3 children over the space of 10 years.
Children out of wedlock.
Yeah, children out of wedlock. Yeah, sure, everybody does it.
Oh, great! We just lost the Bible Belt. Thanks.
This American push for this DVD is going fucking terrible.
No, they'll like that. They'll like chicks of children out of wedlock.
Interested.
That means she fucks outside of marriage. People like that in America. They're like, she'll cheat. They like cheaters. So you had a kid before you started the show?
My first child. I had my first child when I was 25, and he was 4 months old when we filmed this.
So you had a 4-month-old while you were making this fucking show?
While I was making this fucking show, yeah.
You did it, though.
Was it Hell on Earth?
It was Hell on Earth is maybe one way to describe it, sure.
Right.
But it felt like my life was extremely polar. Like on the one hand, I kind of had a baby at home, and then on the other hand, I was kind of doing this incredible show which was really high energy. It felt like the 2 worlds were so totally different, and I was inhabiting them simultaneously, and it was crazy, but it was intense. It was kind of, which is the way I like to live my life, luckily. So yeah, I mean, I did it.
I'd forgotten that was the timeline of it. For some reason, I'd remembered that you had Gabriel in between the 2 shows, but I'd forgotten it was before the first series.
Oh, so you know the kids' names. I'm at an utter loss. What are the kids' names?
Do I have to say?
Yeah.
Is that weird?
You might want to broadcast
for the
kidnaps and all.
Is that a problem in America?
I know. You can.
Hang on.
Just give them initials. What is it? G,
B, and F. They're called Gabriel, B, and Frida.
If only it had been H.
Oh, right. So it could be the BFG.
It was like pulling teeth to get those fucking names. So wait, Gabriel was the first one?
Gabriel was the first one.
Were you a bottle feeder or a breastfeeder?
It was breast all the way.
So you were breastfeeding while the show was going on?
I was breastfeeding through the night while we were making this show.
Christ.
Yeah.
Did you ever, you could tell me it's too personal, did you ever leak while you're making the show?
Sure I did.
Did you really?
Sure.
Yeah. Simon leaked too, a lot.
I used to leak a lot. I used to go.
He always, there was always a little bit of sputum, wasn't there? Just
there was always a little bit of dew on the lily, you know what I'm
saying? But Simon knows the secret to not leaking. What is it, dude? Say it.
To not leaking?
Yeah.
What, down here?
No, up there. Sweat.
Ah, yes, of course. Yeah, it's a procedure. It's a procedure you can have.
Don't call it a procedure, dude. Just say
Kevin.
It. Say the word. Say the word. You didn't do it, but you know what it is.
This is candid. They love this shit.
You can have Botox under your arms and it stops you sweating.
Get the fuck out of here.
True say.
That is amazing to me.
And do your armpits also look 10 years younger?
They're less expressive, apparently. But
what if you have to emote with your armpit? Absolutely fucked.
We actually, later on in the series, there was like stuff in the second series, there was a scene where your armpits were particularly sweaty.
Oh, let's just talk about my hygiene.
That's not hygiene, dude. You can't help that. Well, apparently
we painted your sweat out in one scene.
That was because of continuity.
CG?
Well, just in the online, we painted it out.
Get out of here.
It was like a
one
Christmas
minute I was dry, the next minute I was...
it was a continuity issue. Yeah, it was a sweat continuity issue.
All right, fuck this. Back to Jessica's boobs. So the whole time you're breastfeeding, and then sometimes you leak during it, and then that must be a continuity
I would
problem.
go, wah! And then
Well,
suddenly
no.
these 2 patches would appear. It was
No,
amazing.
because-
You
You
could
know,
deduce it with a baby noise? Let's try it.
nobody need know. You know, there are things
Right.
you can buy to actually, sort of prevent
What?
them
Like
actually
Kleenex? Or is there a special product
They're called breast pads.
that go in the bra?
That makes sense.
Absolutely, they go in the bra.
That's so strange.
I'm surprised you don't know this.
It's been a while since I had a
you
kid.
breastfed.
And maybe my wife kept the, yeah.
Did you breastfeed,
I could,
Kevin?
I could literally breastfeed right now.
Apparently,
My fucking tits are so
men
big.
can. Apparently,
I've heard of male
I had a
lactation.
story. And it's. I don't know if it's just a myth.
Like,
an
you can
Eskimo
see them
myth.
there, Jess, to be honest. That's a definitely fecund boobage.
That's baby
Fecund
boobs
boobage.
right there.
They're not baby boobs. They are mine. I've always had boobs like that. Babies and babies.
Right.
Did they not
Babies or
get
no
bigger
babies.
when you had a baby?
I'm starting to sweat.
Yeah, of course they
Can
got
somebody turn
bigger.
the air conditioning on?
So that's
were
definitely
huge.
baby boobs. When was this was
Apparently,
shot?
Eskimo men can breastfeed.
Really?
Yeah, I heard a story that it's. I don't know if it's just a myth, an Eskimo myth, an urban myth, but they have they had the baby. The woman died in childbirth, so this Eskimo man only has kind of seal fat and snow to feed it, which is not going to be good for a baby. So actually, after perseverance, managed to suckle his own child. And
So
that
from
if you
na-
suckle enough, apparently men can lactate.
From Nanook of the North to Nanook of the nipple.
The nipple.
So you
Thank
could ask if you
you.
want some-
Yeah,
They have
thank you.
100 words for snow and only 1 for leakage.
I'll just have a drop of male Eskimo milk in my tea. Please. It's quite rare. Is there a shop around here that does it?
There is. It's down on Santa Monica Boulevard.
Would you like any flavouring in your coffee? Can I get Eskimo breast milk, please? Oh, yeah.
Not
sure.
female, male. Eskimo. The
Male
female.
I've been
Eskimo
looking for a name for my band, and Eskimo breast milk is definitely going to be it.
I want to go back
Male
to.
Eskimo.
I still like the idea of the story of Jessica Stevenson, the friendly grass snake. From Beatrix
Friendly
Potter.
grass.
Beatrix
Yeah,
Potter.
yeah, yeah.
Beatrix Potter with Jessica Stevenson.
So how did you guys meet? I know how you guys met from the show, but how'd you come into meeting her?
She came along to an audition that it was a sketch show, and Katie, who plays Twist in this, brought Jess along for the hell of it. And Jess was better than everybody else that auditioned. So
It was a bit of a Leroy moment for
Yeah,
me.
it was. It
I mean,
was
that's
like
what I
Leroy
like
in
to think.
Fame.
Ah.
And I met her and just thought she was the bee's
I did
knees.
one of you'd written this big monologue,
Spider-Man
Peter
thing.
Parker.
That's right, yeah.
And I picked it up and I thought, oh my god, this is brilliant. And I did it completely different from how you did it,
Yeah.
but I did it. And
And I was just kind of
and
like,
you're like, oh,
who is
who's
this
she?
kid? She's really got a sparkle and I like her. and then we did Asylum, and then we were offered a show. They said, well, do you want to do a show? And then we said, yeah, but we would like to write it. And that was how we got Space. And then we got Edgar on board because he was so good. We loved what he did with Asylum, and it was like,
hello.
There's Edgar over there. We should point out actually the comic book thing, the bear cartoon. Is another little parallel with your stuff, Kevin.
In what way?
With the
Because we ripped it off.
no, with, with like
Nice.
with Banky and Holden in Chasing
Doing
Amy.
their comic book.
their
And
comic
Brian,
book.
wasn't Brian
Chasing
on
Amy
your
was
show as well?
came out after Space.
No,
No,
it
it
was
was
just
before.
before.
Was
Hey,
it?
lady.
But I hadn't seen Chasing.
Credit from me, man.
Credit where credit's
I
due.
hadn't seen Chasing Amy though when we wrote.
Why do you think we got him in? It's to absolve our guilt.
Is it? Because Tim was always going to be a comic book artist. Because I knew a lot of when I was kind of
Yes, he
living in
was.
squats
And I was
with
a
for
big
no
comic
rent.
book fan.
There was always people who would make drawing comics. There were always people who were
Yeah.
about to. So
And
there
you were
was.
friends with Mr. Hewlett and stuff, weren't you?
I was.
grown up with him.
Well, I wasn't. I didn't. Well, I didn't kind of know Jamie. I kind of did know Jamie Hewlett, but actually, no. It was
He knew
Adam was.
Siobhan, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
There's
yeah, there were lots
also
of people doing stuff like that.
The tell the story. Tell Kevin the story about the online comment, of which we're all very fond.
Oh, there was. I was saying to them, it's funny getting you because I remember there's a sort of a comedy website in the UK who can be pretty kind of harsh sometimes, and they said. One person said about the first episode, said, very sub Kevin Smith.
That's what they write about me now. my present catalog compared to my old catalog is very sub Kevin Smith.
You can't even
and
do
Brian-
yourself anymore.
No, I can't even do me. Can't do good me. Brian was on your show as well, the Asylum show, wasn't he?
Yeah, no, but
I saw him
The
with you
character
in
kinda
something.
was.
Big Train.
Big Train.
That was
The
another sketch show.
Yeah.
But
Jeez, how many
interestingly-
fucking sketch shows did you do?
3.
You just banging on fucking doors, man. You're like, one day it's gonna take off.
It worked eventually.
I want to be in Star Trek one day, and that's what it took.
Was that my
Well,
voice?
you did exactly that with Mission Impossible 3, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I said in an interview after Shaun of the Dead, they were saying, "Oh, what, you're going to go off to Hollywood now?" Which is what they always say in England. And I said,
You
"No,
went, yeah, deal with it.
I'm not." I know. I said, and Mission Impossible 3 wasn't even on the cards. It wasn't even a concept at the time. And I said, I'm not going to just run away and do, I don't know, Mission Impossible 3 or something. And like 3 months later, JJ phoned me up, and I sort of very contritely said, "Yes, please."
Now,
So
cut
it's
to
been
now.
Praying he never saw that.
You just finished filming Star Trek, and in Spaced, you have a line where you say every odd-numbered Star Trek movie is shit. Now,
Well, this
the
will
one that you've done could either be 11 or 1. Either way, you lose.
No, because there are always exceptions to rules, and that was pre this Star Trek movie, which...
So Tim Bisley can break the curse.
How weird is that? Tim Bisley broke his curse. Strange and true.
Let's go back real quick to the Chasing Amy screening. Why did you fucking go to that?
Because we were big
Everyone was
fans of
saying it was
Clerks and
brilliant,
Mallrats.
and we love Clerks and Mallrats.
I would imagine. I watched the
terminally
show.
self-deprecating.
I
You know
very
the
much
weird thing
am.
is, you said that you got confused with Brian in Asylum. The strange
Yes.
thing is the guy that came with us, Julian Barrett, who was in Asylum, who is now huge in the UK with a show called The Mighty Boosh, and a very great friend of all of ours. He was the original person who was going to play Brian and had to drop out at the last minute, and Mark Heap had to take his place.
Why did he drop out? Because he had a baby?
No.
I think we could say on record that his agents were complete tosspots.
Well, they were
They
saying,
didn't want him to do it. They were, like,
they were
"Don't
saying
do it."
he's got
He's
his
got
own
different
show.
agents
He's
now.
got his own show, and fair enough. 10 years later, it came out, but it was like was it 5 years later?
That's not legally banned. He's not even with the same agents. He left his agents because of that.
Because they're tossers.
So you guys are doing this show, and when do you start thinking about doing Spaced? When does Space become
Space
a
kind of
reality?
came
You
up
guys-
after Asylum, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and you were. I mean, I was kind of wrote the first sort of thing, didn't I? Kind of, in a way.
Well, the treatment.
in a
you
way,
did. Yes,
the treatment,
yes, yes.
yeah, and
We
then
had that
we.
What was the
meeting in
treatment? Was it
Nottingham.
like
It was
just a one line of like a guy and a girl move into a space?
No, treatment was like
What we talked about it, what it was inspired by, and you did all because all your
the
characters.
treatment was basically. I'd lived in a flat once where I was underneath this woman who was like this old hippie kind of rock chick who had a daughter who
Marsha.
they used to have huge rows
Yeah.
upstairs that were really loud,
Right.
and the way the house was sort of laid out sort of worked well, because of course if you're thinking about doing a sitcom you have to have a kind of communal space that people can move in and out of, so you can always bring characters in and out, so the space was kind of sort of important or a good place to start.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
actually the starting point, the point where I actually sat down and actually was writing a monologue for Marsha, writing her dialogue,
That's
which was
right.
kind of coming out of a lot with, I mean, sorry, but actually my mum and all her friends, kind
Yeah.
of amalgamation really of the female women that
I
I
remember
grew up
'cause
with.
when I got back and I
The
read
female women.
The female women, as opposed to the
male
man
Eskimos.
ladies, and
I
the male
remember
Eskimos.
all your female characters at first all had German Jewish names, which
Yeah.
we were talking about the other night, which is something of that you'd almost purposely done. Hoffmeyer, Klein, and Steiner.
Well, my
Two
mother's
remain.
maiden name was Beckerman, and her family was Zaslavsky.
Russian Jewish, wasn't it?
Russian
Sorry,
Jewish.
I beg your pardon.
But not me, because I'm kind of the wrong kind of Jew. I'm not a Jew because my grandfather was Jewish, so I'm.
And you have always regretted that.
I haven't regretted it. There's nothing I can do about it. That's
just-
the law. That's
it got
the law.
so uncomfortable for a second because you know how in all films about World War II,
Yeah.
the Germans are portrayed by British people. And you're interrogating this poor Jewish girl about these names in a very British accent.
They're Jewish.
You come off like Ray Fiennes, dude, in Schindler's List. So you write a treatment or a kind of treatment, and
Yeah,
then
was
well,
that
when do
the
you
episode?
see
the
it?
treatment was the sort of breakdown. It was the
Breakdown of
setup.
the
It was all
plot.
the characters. It was
We
Tim.
talked about
it
the
was
fact we wanted to
Daisy.
do
Yeah, we wanted to
a
do
show
something.
that was kind of
Yeah.
a bit like Northern Exposure meets X-Files meets
Yeah.
The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And so I went away filming, and Jess wrote it all down, wrote a breakdown of the characters that we discussed. Tim's name comes from Simon Bisley, the artist
Yes,
who did
yes.
ABC
He did
Warriors
Lobo and whatnot.
Lobo and
And
Slain
the
and all that.
Stateside,
Yeah. And I guess Marsha, you came up with all the girls' names. Top we shared.
Well, no,
and
Brian.
What
No, because
was
Brian.
Nick's creation.
Because Brian came out of the fact that when I was working with Julian, and Julian was doing lots of comedy, and Julian was saying, I really want to act. I want to do some acting, and so I kind of
10
based Brian on his performance in Asylum,
Right, yeah.
as
the artist.
Victor, yeah, and. Yeah, there we go.
Let's
It's
just.
finishing.
I think we'll come back for another episode in a couple of
Of
seconds.
Space, in a very special episode of Blossom.
Hold that thought.
Hey,
Hello.
We're back.
We're back. This is Edgar Wright.
Jessica Hines, Nate Stevenson.
Simon Pegg.
And Kevin Smith, carpetbagging onto some quality yet again. But when we last left, if you haven't listened to the commentary in episode 1, please
What
do.
the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, why would you skip right to 2? But Jessica, you were saying.
Oh, I was just saying about how, basically my life experience from between about 18 and 24, which is when we started writing Space, was living in London, kind of trying to basically make a living, because I sort of didn't go to university or didn't do any studying, so I was working in restaurants, working in horrible jobs, doing all that kind of thing, and on auditioning as well, but living in squats and having unsavoury experiences and brilliant experiences. And also when you're that young, everything seems quite heightened and amazing and magical.
Right.
So I had a kind of really good energy about it. And I wanted to write about that. And in particular, was very interested in writing, obviously, a role for myself, but also...
That's the thing. Like, you watch this show. Like, first time when I met you guys, you two... in the UK when I went over to do the
Star Wars thing.
No, it was the evening with Kevin Smith in
yeah.
London. And somebody, I loved Shaun of the Dead. Quentin had introduced me to Shaun of the Dead. He had a screening at his house, and I went up there and fell in love with it. It was that movie where you're like, oh my God, I wish I had made that fucking movie. So when I came to the UK to do the evening with somebody, I don't know who knew you or who we had in common, but somebody was like, would you like to meet the guys that did Shaun of the Dead? I was like, oh, fucking, of course. And we met there, and you gave me Spaced. And, it was one of those things where you're like, hey, thanks. And in the back of your mind, you're like, I will never watch this. I don't have the right region player. I'm not interested. Look, I liked your movie, dude. I don't want to watch your whole fucking back catalog. My old lady was the first one that put it in. And absolutely fell in love with the show instantly. Is because, like, unlike most fucking male-driven programs or movies, there's a strong female character that is right up there with the male character, the co-leads and shit. And so it was through her that I started watching.
Shit.
Yes, that's very big. So she fell absolutely in love with it, and then that's when we started watching. And I wound up watching them back to back, which. If you tell somebody in the States, like, I watched a whole TV series today, that's like, wow, you wasted a whole day.
No.
But since there's only fucking 6, it was kind of easy to get through season 1. But yeah, I mean, I guess is dearth less or more when you say there's a dearth?
Dearth less.
So there's a dearth of strong female roles.
Well, my feeling exactly, and what I'd seen in British television, I mean, and maybe also to some extent, but to a less extent in America, television. Also, Seinfeld's got a fantastic female character in it. Although she's not necessarily a lead, she's strong and she's funny. Right. And Friends was obviously kind of equally peopled, although they weren't people I could relate to, or necessarily they weren't people I knew. Obviously people in London, people who were very, very ordinary and heightened and funny and idiosyncratic and kind of contradictory and strange, and that's kind of why I wanted to write something for me and for my friends, my female friends and male friends, and create a world that was people with characters who I could relate to and who everybody knew.
Yeah, we'd said in at the off, let's make this a very even show so it has a broad appeal to both genders, and not for it not to be too blokey and not to be too swing the other way. So
there was also a thing at the time, like when we made the show, that there were a lot of post kind of like Friends, there were a lot of kind of shows in the UK that
Where
were...
was this in relation to like coupling and shit like that?
Coupling was a similar time, wasn't it?
Similar time,
We always think
Came
of
out
this as
just
being
about
the
afterwards.
anti-coupling, really. It's kind of...
Well, it's everything about that. Everything about that sort of TV, which is just so glossy.
Yeah.
And the girls are great, they're beautiful, but there's nothing real about them. And they are a kind of a figment of somebody's imagination. They're ideas that based on other people's ideas about who a woman is or how she behaves and what she does. And that, to me, is a waste of time. And
But that's why that shit does well, because it's escapist fare. People don't want to turn on the TV and see
saccharine.
themselves.
I mean,
the majority, I should say, don't want to turn on the TV and see themselves. They want to see pretty people doing simple things.
Yeah.
But like where a show like this appeals to a marginal,
Weirdos.
very strange people, just people who like to turn on the TV and be like, oh my God, I recognize myself in these characters.
I think that's why it's kind of garnered such a sort of strong support, is because the people that do relate to it
fucking love it
so much,
totally.
Which is kind of what we wanted to do, isn't it? We wanted to appeal on that specific, very passionate level.
Well, it's something just on the basis of when we were, just designing it, of like trying to make all the sets look really real, because even just down to the colour of the walls in this set, it's so kind of like just bland and kind of green. And whenever you see
green, isn't it?
Hospital
this
green,
is going to sound like such a stupid question coming from a guy who makes films, but did you build those sets?
Yeah.
See, every time I see an exterior and I just buy it.
Yeah.
I'm so bad like that. Like I'm like, they must have shot in that house because there's an outside shot of it.
People would see the outside of the house, and real kind of like space geeks would go, when they'd see the real house, if they go along there, would then say, I can't figure out exactly what the layout of the inside, how it compares to the outside, because it seems like Brian is downstairs, but then it's on the ground floor.
There is a geographical error in the...
there is a basement in that house. It does go down a hill, so it is possible.
But it's like the bathroom is sort of over the staircase that goes down into Brian's flat or something.
It doesn't quite make sense.
Yeah.
So when
It's
does
like the TARDIS.
when does Edgar come into it?
Edgar came in because we were
probably
looking-
about, I don't know. I mean, I remember it was probably, I don't know, it was probably about Edgar had always been the person we wanted to direct it. I think when we were thinking about it, because obviously from the outset it's an incredibly ambitious idea to create a kind of heightened show with sort of, you know, dynamic kind of movie sequences and things in it. And the only person we knew who was capable of doing that was Edgar. And almost kind of by knowing him and knowing what he was capable of, kind of almost gave us the confidence to write something that ambitious, because we knew that in the end he was going to have to deal with it.
Totally.
He was going to have to carry the can.
There was a whole
Which he
dimension
did.
that he brought to it that we didn't know how to execute or stage or anything, and it was like, you know, he was the missing part of the puzzle in how we're going to get this to work. And I remember he came to Jess's house. We were writing there with a little book of all these ideas, and I remember just being so sort of thrilled with it, thinking, you know, we really have found the right man.
Doodled lots of stuff in the margin.
But I remember when we first met him, we
My
knew
Harry
him
Osborn
from.
cartoon.
I remember when we obviously knew him from Asylum and we wanted him to do it. But I remember actually we had a formal meeting of this is possibly going to be the director, and we'd kind of written, I don't know, first or second episode or whatever.
Yeah.
We would, but I remember us walking away together and us going, oh, he was a bit grumpy, wasn't he? Yeah.
He must have been playing it cool.
He was playing it cool, but also, you know, obviously you were thinking about the logistics of it, and but we, you know,
I tend to kind of have quite a furrow brow when I'm thinking about
yeah,
things.
it was a furrow brow. We were just
you
like,
you can be prickly though. You are. You're one of the sweetest dudes I know, but you can be prickly. Remember, there was
come on, let's talk about
It's
it.
true. There was
Let's
an
get it
art
out in the
show
open.
a few months ago. Remember the art show? There was here in LA, the Crazy for Cult art show.
Oh.
And they had some pieces in the art show that were like Shaun of the Dead, like 3 Shaun of the Dead
I have
pieces.
a story to tell you about that painting.
Okay.
I still haven't got it.
You still all right? Well, hold on to that though.
10 months later.
So there's an art show with all this art inspired by, you know, cult films and movies that like these artists really dig and whatnot. And there were 2 or 3, at least 2, maybe 3 Shaun of the Dead inspired pieces. And so I call Edgar. I'm like, you gotta fucking come down. He was in LA. I was like, you gotta come down here and see this, man. There's this fucking Shaun of the Dead piece that is fucking astounding. And he comes and he looks at it and he's just like, well, they should just give it to me, shouldn't they? Because it's, because it's my movie. And it's like, this dude's a starving artist, dude. Like, throw him a couple bucks.
I think, you know what? You were absolutely right. And as soon as I saw it, I bought it.
It's
I
awesome
still don't
piece.
have it.
What happened?
It got sent to kind of like London. It got caught up at customs. There was a miscommunication. I was over here and back home, and it got sent back to LA again. And then it's finally being sent back. It was in Coventry in the UK for about 6 months.
They sent
and when
it
I
to
got back to
Coventry?
because also we moved offices at the same time. So when I eventually got to the office and said, "Where's that Shaun of the Dead picture that I bought?" We don't know. It said, "That cost me $3,000." Kevin Smith told me to buy it. I've
you
never
didn't buy it,
spent
I was
$3,000 on a painting before.
If you didn't buy it, I was dude. I spent $20,000 on Jay and Silent Bob themed artwork. You know, I felt really
Did you?
bad about it. I had to, man. These dudes all painted like
Absolutely.
me. That's like when you go to. I remember going to comic book shows when I was younger, and you go to like the artist gallery and shit, and they always had paintings of Kirk and Picard and shit and Star Wars, and I was like, God, if somebody painted me, I'd totally buy it. And then
That
one day
happens.
that happened.
That's kind of a phenomenon. That I found them on the internet. People doing little paintings of us and stuff in space and Shaun of the Dead, and it's so, you think this is so nice. You know, it's so kind of
I've got a couple
flattering
of pictures from in Britain. There was a fanzine called Look In, and this was in the days.
yeah.
It's hard to imagine, but in the days before digital technology, people painted the front cover artwork.
Yeah.
And like created. So the front cover of say a British fanzine.
You
would
bought
be,
a $6 million man, didn't you?
I bought a $6 million man, and I went back and got the Bionic Woman. So there's
That's right.
my twin, and they're actual paintings, beautiful kind of realistic paintings that came from the covers of these Look In. But I mean, actually, sometimes I do wish I'd kind of bought the. They seem like a good pair, but the one where you have Wurzel Gummidge. Do you ever have Wurzel Gummidge in?
No, I don't know.
Wurzel
what that
Gummidge is like this very sort of it's very sort of generic British kids TV about this scarecrow who comes to life. So I mean, on one particular cover, I remember they had a collection of them. It was Wurzel Gummidge, and then behind his head painted was Buck Rogers coming out with a kind of laser gun.
Bill Gerard.
You know,
Bill Gerard,
yeah. But it was all actually painted, and they were kind of beautiful.
Collect-
Are they
If you
doing
put-
for the DVD cover? Are they using the painted one that you guys had?
We're going to do a new one. We're going to do like a sort of like space special edition. Do
Who
another
did that
one.
last one?
A guy called Jim Murray who does the artwork in this, who does the bear, who's like who, you know the comic 2000 AD?
Yes.
Yeah, so Jim Murray was
Dredd.
like, he did Judge Dredd. He did one of the Judge Dredd versus Batman sort of
he
ones.
did all
Because we
the
did
bear
actually
stuff?
originally
Yeah.
approach Jamie Hewlett to do this, didn't we?
I think we did, didn't we?
Did we ask him? I don't know.
And Jason as well,
I went
Jason
round to
Brohill.
I went round to his house. That's right, because he was telling me the other day. He said he'll never forget me coming round to his. I'd just written it, and I was just full of that kind of. We're going to do this, and I'm going to approach him because if he comes on board, it'd be great because obviously he did Tank Girl, and
Right,
and
right.
he's Jamie Hewlett, you know.
Yeah, totally.
And he said he remembers me coming round with a pram and a script, kind of sitting there, kind of
script
saying,
in the pram.
telling him about it. No, obviously the baby.
This is my baby.
This is my baby. No, this is my baby. But
and somehow he said no. A woman with a baby and a script under her
know.
arm. She's like, I'm fucking desperate. He's
I
like,
even
no,
breastfed
sorry.
in front of him. Didn't work. Didn't work. No, and I don't know. Actually, I don't know why that didn't work out. But in a way, actually, I think this guy's perfect.
Well,
I don't think Jamie Hewitt would have been quite right. Actually,
Jim's style is very. He's from
very Simon
the
Bisley.
Simon
yeah,
Bisley
yeah,
school.
it's much better for
To
this.
the
I think,
point
yeah.
when Simon Bisley was looking through Jim's back catalogue and came across the front cover of the comic with Tim Bisley and said, "What the fuck's this?"
Jim Murray and
Simon Bisley started
are friends,
calling me.
and when he saw some of the space art, he goes, "This looks a bit familiar."
Yeah.
We found out that like Simon Bisley was kind of sort of was initially bemused that we'd like named a character after him,
Yeah,
but then
yeah.
I think he really likes it now.
He phoned me one night and said that he was angry with his. I can't remember what it was. It was a really bizarre call about.
He's stolen my soul.
Yeah, I thought you was having an affair with my wife or something. I was kind of on the phone to my one of my comic book heroes, thinking, "What the fuck's going on?" He's accusing me of having an affair with his wife. But he's a thoroughly nice
And you
man.
said it was nothing. It was just a moment.
He's like a huge biker type as well.
Bisley?
Yeah.
He looks like Lobo.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
So you shot the shit out of this fucking show. Like it's not. It doesn't look like a sitcom, and it could have easily looked like a sitcom. So, were you just going like, "This is my shot," so I'm gonna pull every trick out of my bag?
I think so.
Or do you just think that visually?
Well, I think sort of. I'd done a bunch of TV stuff before, and in fact, I'd done the show with Simon and Jess, and I'd done in between doing the show Asylum with Simon and Jess, and I'd done like very low budget films when I started, but then got into TV very young. And then I'd done a couple of like shows at the BBC that were much more kind of like big rated, but kind of pretty conventional kind of shows, or conventional kind of the approach, like French and Saunders and Murder Most Horrid, which are kind of like big shows in the UK, but like,
there's a look to it.
Oh, yeah, and they're
You're
older,
working in
kind
the
of
look
like it's
that's
an older
already been
generation.
established, yeah.
And I'd done those shows, and then I was reading the scripts as Simon and Jess were doing them, and I remember kind of reading them over like an 18-month period. So I knew when we finally hit the ground running, I was thinking, not just like this is my shot, but also I kind of felt like this was like absolutely tailor-made. It's like sort of, and all of us at the time, we were all kind of close to the age of the characters, and so it was like, we were all in our mid to late 20s, and so it was really the case of like, this is our show and our time, and every other show that was about kind of like young people at the time
Was nothing
were,
like
were,
anything.
were written by like 50-year-olds or people in their 40s, and so having the combination of like kind of like two writer stars who are in their 20s and a director that's in their 20s, I just wanted to, and also I really I was really inspired a lot by the kind of directors that made me want to be a director, particularly like the Coen brothers or like Sam Raimi, and people who I would watch their stuff and thinking,
Right.
why can't everything look like that?
It does have like an early Raimi-esque feel to it.
Well,
Not
we have the
Spider-Man
Evil Dead.
Raimi, but
we have the Evil Dead 2 poster on prominent display.
Yeah.
As a sort of like to
That bit
kind
at
of,
the end of episode 1 with all the crashed Dutches is very Raimi, isn't it?
And the
Yeah, yeah.
lighting's amazing. I was just looking at that and just thinking, I don't know, just how brilliant and how kind of I don't know. It's just brilliantly lit constantly. It always has so much depth, and all your angles are just so perfect.
But it was a real like, when I do stuff at the BBC, like there was, just before I did this kind of anthology show called Murder Most Horrid, which they had different directors each week, and most of the other directors were kind of BBC directors. And I'd done one, and I remember the producer came up to me after the first day of the shoot and said, and I won't mention the name, he said, the previous director said, so-and-so, do you know what, you've done more shots in one day than so-and-so did for the entirety of his 4-week shoot? And I said, I should fucking hope so. I said, you want like a different director to make it look different, surely. But I remember like, and it wasn't really the case on this, but it was definitely like the coverage and the amount of setups on this compared to other TV shows. The producers, there was some like producers were kind of like, nobody was really worried about it, but there was definitely kind of people who were aware of like, wow, this is a lot different to how other shows have been made.
Yeah.
And there was maybe some kind of
got
race.
sacked, didn't you?
I nearly got sacked at the very start because I refused to show one of the executive producers' rushes. And the only reason that I did is because I thought it wouldn't make any sense, because it was such a jigsaw. And also the other thing that's
Rushes
worth pointing
are days
out,
for American listeners.
one thing that's worth pointing out is that unlike TV shows over here, where you do one episode at a time, we did the whole 7 episodes in one jumble. So
so you shot it like a
film.
flick.
And so in some cases there would be some days that will be, I call that, there were a couple of like complete meltdown days, and usually those would be days when we'd have to do bits from all 7 episodes in one day. Particularly whenever it's the exterior of the house, we'd have to kind of do all of the. So you suddenly have like 16 short scenes,
wardrobe changes,
and also just kind of, especially because of all the transitions, and particularly in the second series, we did some stuff outside the house, and there was so many little bits from like all 7 shows, and it would. Kind of you just have to be completely on top of it. But it was... So we shot all of the stuff in the set and then did all the location stuff, like on the first series. But it was, But it is sometimes when you do something when you're kind of young, you're just powered along by your own naivety because you don't know... It's not a case that you go, this is how the old folks do it, let's break the rules. Because you don't even know what the rules are.
Right. Yeah.
Like nobody's ever really taught you how to make a proper TV show, so you kind of just do it like kind of... do it.
Yeah, like this. If I had a chance to make a TV show, this is how I would do it. And you're given the chance, so you're like, "Fuck it, I'll do it this way."
And to their credit, like the channel, like the network, Channel 4, and nobody ever really, because it was a low budget show. It was very low budget.
What was the budget? I mean, can you break a budget down?
It was. I think sort of Space. The first series cost something like 120,000 an episode, which is not a lot.
Pounds or
pounds?
Dollars? So that would be
It's just under $1 million, I think.
Per,
For the whole series.
The whole show.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's insanely inexpensive.
Yeah. I think on the second series we had a bit more,
It was
but then
20
the second
grand more.
series, the second series scripts were doubly kind of
more
ambitious, so it
ambitious,
kind of
I
made
think,
it
yeah.
more difficult second time round.
So when it first aired, how was it received? It was aired on what, Channel 4?
Channel 4.
And what is that in relation to like?
It seemed like anything.
It was also interesting that it was shown in between. They used to, on a Friday night, they used to have the comedy sort of like night, like your kind of must-see. What was it? NBC used to have must-see Thursdays?
Thursday,
Friends
yeah.
and Frasier.
In between Friends and Frasier. So Friends would be on
What
at
a
9.
strange bookend.
yeah.
Friends would be on at 9, Space 9:30, Frasier 10
We
o'clock.
took huge
I-
pleasure in blowing off someone's head between Friends and
But
Frasier.
I
Two
never-
minutes after Friends ended, we had the back of someone's head explode, which was...
But I never realised that actually, because obviously, the popularity and the sort of fan base has grown since it's really been on DVD. When it was on television, a handful of people watched it and loved it, and were like, I had an experience in between the. After we'd finished filming the second series, and it was about to then go on television. Just at that time, I went away. I went to India for a month, and I had this really strange experience. We were just in this one little part on this little beach. We just took our son there, and every day we'd see the same guy, Dave, who was from Birmingham. Every day he was like a beach lizard, and he was a leathery sort of skin, and he was just absolutely laying out like a beach lizard every day in the Indian sun.
Yeah.
Kind of smoking and he was so friendly, and it was always playing frisbee with Gabriel and lovely, and we saw him every day. Hi Dave, how you doing? All right guys, you lovely. And we'd sort of often have tea at the same time, and then just before we left, I mean, he was going to be in India for the next 6 months or whatever, we started chatting, and in that way we found out what people do and everything. I was like, he said, so what do you guys do? And I was like, well, and the first series of Space had aired at that point. And I was like, I'm working television, and then Adam said, she's been she's been in the royal family, maybe you've heard of that. And he was like, no. And then he said, and then I said, nobody watched it, but I was in this thing called Space. And he was like, you are joking? He was like, what were you in that? And I was
How could he not recognise you?
I was
that's strange.
I know, but we'd been
I am Daisy.
I said, I am Daisy. No, but I've been seeing him every single day for a whole month. But I think it was completely. But he was absolutely paralysed. He was like, I love that show.
That's 'cause
I love
beach
it.
lizards love
My
space. It's a
friend
fact.
is taping it for me, the second series. That's a terrible accent. But
hang on, but
Americans will never know how bad that accent is.
How could he not recognise you from the show?
Because I'd cut my hair, so I had short hair. It was completely out of context.
Yeah.
And I was
Oh,
there.
yeah, you had really short
and it was
hair,
just
didn't
one of
you?
those things. Because he'd seen me every day, he just didn't register.
Only
because I
about
wasn't jumping up and
1.2
down
million people
doing
watched
funny
it on the
voices.
TV.
Is that
That was it. But
was
I
the
think that
estimate?
the highest we ever got was about 1.5, wasn't it? Even for the second.
maybe like 1.9 was the highest we ever
Was it?
got.
But it was
But like-
it was one of those things. I think Friday night was the wrong time for it. I think everyone, the kind of people that would watch that show were probably out. Particularly the kind of clubbing end, the
Yeah,
sort of
the
more
Friday
sort
night.
of,
Yeah.
the hedonists that have picked up on the show were probably out
and
getting high.
not a great lead-in for a Frasier.
No.
It felt really, at that point, like, why we did put all that effort in, you know? It felt like, oh my God.
You were very depressed after the second.
The start
season.
of it was weird. Like I remember that I got very depressed when at the start of the second series, because when we worked so hard on the second series, and like they were repeating the first series leading up to the second series, and each week the first series was getting more and more viewers, like at 11 o'clock at night. So and credit to the network, they trailered it around the clock. The trailers were always on. And so like the repeat of the last episode of the first series had got 1.9 million viewers, and we're thinking, oh wow, and the second one's coming out next week, this is going to be amazing. And then somehow, even with trailers around the clock, the first episode of the second series went to 1.1 million. So I was thinking, and I just remember being like in the edit, trying to edit the second one, going, why?
What's the point?
Yeah, what's the point? Fuck this.
Did you really snog Tony Way then? Can I just ask? I've always wondered if you were really getting at it with him there.
What, slip my tongue in?
Yeah.
That would be so unprofessional.
Would it?
I think it'd be very professional to slip the tongue in.
What do you think? Do you think I should have slipped the tongue in?
It's a regret.
Do you think it would have been appropriate for me to slip the
schools
tongue
of
in?
thought, but it's usually discussed beforehand.
Yes.
Because you don't want to be perceived as the actress who tongues everybody.
Exactly.
So you want to go for just the open mouth kiss.
The open mouth kiss.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, I agree.
That Jess is the actress that tongues everyone.
Yes, the one tongue.
I've never
everywhere.
used tongues, I have to say. Even with my own husband,
Really?
I refuse. Yeah, just in case word
No
gets
French
out.
kissing.
No
whatsoever.
French kissing.
Do they call it French kissing?
Yeah.
French
Yes.
kissing.
Over there?
Yeah.
When did you get married in relation to the show? The show had been off the air for how long?
I got married in 2003, so it would have been about 4
2
years.
years.
Happy
2
day.
years.
Remember the day very
Good
clearly.
day. What a day.
It was a good party,
It was
wasn't it?
chaotic. It was chaos.
Why didn't you get
Who
married
cares?
while the show was happening?
Yeah, that would have been good. That would have been really good. That would have been an excellent plan to get married while the show was happening.
During
Because I had so
during
much
an episode.
time to think about getting married. It
Was
would
he
have
not
been
a
very
fan? Was he one of those
non-stressful.
people that's like, look, I like Friends and I
Yeah.
like Frasier, but the show in the middle, not so
Don't
much.
like. No, he was kind of. He was sort of kind of. He said he still hasn't watched all of it. I mean, he's that kind of person. Really.
Yeah.
He's like, you know, that's just what she does for the job. It's quite good.
I get
She
to
said
see
she
her at
makes
home
me
for
beans
free.
on toast.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So you were hooked up. You, on the other hand, were you hooked up or were you single? while the show's on?
Part of my sort of thing for this show, I came out of a very messy breakup. I was like a curmudgeonly dumped man, and channeled a lot of it into
Yeah.
writing this.
I'll say.
And I was like, Jess basically nursed me through this breakup after, she kind of looked after me for about a couple of weeks when I was like just in an alcoholic, what's the word? Malaise, wasn't it?
Malaise.
But then I just thought, right, I'm going to write about it. So that
stupor.
yeah, my sort of
Haze.
Tim's experience was all about the fact that he'd just been chucked and was really angry about it, and so I wasn't. But I met my wife just before I shot the second series in Greece.
And
so
had she ever seen the first?
she had.
series?
Her boyfriend used to watch it every Friday, and she didn't used to watch it because why can't we go out? And funnily enough, her boyfriend was the fan,
Love
and
this
she
bit at
wasn't.
the end.
Really?
So then,
Hello.
when she met me, she went, "That's that guy from that film, that
That dude
program I
must
hate."
have such mixed feelings.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
just like I lost her, but I lost the dude from space. That's kind of cool.
Hello, back again, Simon Pegg.
Here we are. Jessica Stevenson.
Edgar Wright.
And we're joined
The
today
lovely.
by Julia Deacon, who plays Marsha. Hello, Julia.
Hello, I'm the lovely Julia Deacon.
She speaks very differently to the way Marsha speaks. More of that later. Here we are in the living room.
Episode 2.
Episode 2.
Back here
The
with
pre-title sequence of
the
episode
lovely
2.
Anna Wilson-Jones again.
Making another appearance, radiant.
Not
beautiful.
killing anybody in Inspector Morse.
I like the lighting in this scene. Very kind of very light.
If you can,
isn't it?
in the background,
Sort
you
of
can hear a
light
sort of
there.
version of.
A Japanese version of
What the hell?
Eurythmics, There Must Be an Angel.
The monster attacked him.
That really
Great.
hurt. That
It's
really
only
hurt.
a dream.
Tell us about that, Simon.
That really hurt that bit. I had to get pulled in there about 5 or 6 times, and I had no skin on my back by the end of it. And
But why didn't you say anything?
Because Jim, our first AD, Jim Imber, who was a fantastic first
You know,
AD,
my
really cares about our health and safety. And if he'd known that I was actually in pain, he would have stopped it and had salve rubbed into my back.
Basically, when Jim when something's dangerous, and Jim, you'll be hearing about this for the first time, me, Simon, and Jess have a code of we wink at each other and say, we'll just do it, and stuff. And Jim doesn't know, because if anything gets vaguely violent, then Jim just stops it. But we kind of
Like this bit
we
coming up.
Yeah,
The-
but we
the
kind of
Coke
like tap
bottle.
the nose, which means
just
for it.
go for it.
Do
Just
it.
jump off.
just
the
jump
wall.
off, just fall into the water on
Yeah.
this take.
I love this bit in this scene that Edgar added the sound of a fly buzzing around.
Yeah, I was going to say,
yeah,
fly.
it's great. It's a nice little touch. And this
First
is the
appearance of your typewriter and glasses,
yeah.
the lensless glasses.
This was the same day we
The
filmed
lensless,
all the
I remember
stuff.
having to justify
What's
the
this?
lensless glasses. They're saying white lens. Can we just? Should we say that what we wished we'd done on this take? What we
was
wished
that?
we'd done.
What you wish you'd done?
Done the red down the face.
Oh, like from Close
Yeah, because there's a
Encounters,
lot
because
we
it's
allude
another
to
Close
the
Encounters
Close
reference.
Encounters of
yeah.
the Third Kind a lot in this episode, and it was something that
Oh,
we
the
just
sort of
thought would have been
Dreyfus thing.
perfect.
I haven't seen you sit behind that typewriter for longer than 2 minutes.
What do you mean?
Now, this was all filmed on the same day that we did all the stuff you've seen in the previous episode of
Dinner table.
the whole
scene.
dinner table, the Dutchess, all the Married Before You Kiss stuff. And this was done in the evening
Right,
of
Julia?
that day.
You're right there.
Am I allowed to speak when I'm not on screen?
No.
Ah,
What have I told you?
sorry.
Julia,
Look at
you
your
have to
hair,
sit
back
here.
lip.
Julia pays us £10 an episode to be in spaced.
It's from a spray can, that hair. It's not real.
No, Tim actually says thrush there, which was never very
You
loud.
can't really
in the
hear it.
doubt.
You don't like jokes about thrush and vomit, do you?
I can't hear you.
You don't like jokes
You can't
about
take
thrush
one of
and
your
vomit.
headphones off, Julia.
Take your... Look, Julia doesn't know anything about DVDs.
What, Julia, why do you think we're here today?
I thought it was going to be like Woman's Hour, really. I'm good at that. Ah. And I don't like speaking.
Every hour's a woman's hour when you're around, Julia.
Oh,
Here's
Look
Jess
at- there we
doing some
go.
funny glass
Classic.
acting. Look at that.
more danger.
I like this
Now
bit.
that, Jim-
That bit was funny.
Jim didn't like that.
Jim didn't... I had to stand like 2 foot from it and throw it.
Now this is the music from Misery, isn't it?
Yeah.
And music from Misery, and
And then
my
this
my
is-
little homage to Fantasia.
To Shine as well.
Shine,
That was
yes,
actually,
Shine.
That was almost accidental. the fact
Absolutely.
That was you
Delvin
doing
House
Shine and Edgar
resemblance.
doing
Yeah.
Fantasia.
You doing Noah Taylor, but also all the kind of pots and pans is like a bit supposed to be like, a bit like half kind of Sorcerer's Apprentice.
This is all really...
I loved this. I love this bit.
The rubber gloves. All the bits that you love are the bits we weren't in. 'Cause you didn't
I
have
love
to-
doing the rubber gloves.
That's my hands there, the yellow ones, right front, right there now. That's mine.
This is where I decided I really love Daisy because I'm very anal and I like people who make lists about housework.
I know.
It's
That's
the only
the-
bit I can identify with in the
Well, wasn't
entire
it-
2 series.
Wasn't
actually.
there in
I
the
felt
original
that you were
kind of
anal as
draft?
well.
So it was changed around, wasn't it? Because originally it was Tim was kind of untidy and Daisy was tidy, and then it was
but
swapped around,
yeah,
wasn't
we
it?
did.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because it.
How long have we been going?
Because.
Here's one of our super obscure references, which is from Raiders of the Lost Ark. When it's coming up, this.
Trust me.
That's a reference. I love that, 9.5 minutes. That's one of Edgar's jokes, post-production jokes.
I
We were
put
slightly
9.5
worried when
minutes- I put 9.5 minutes later on it as well to make it sound a bit more sex orientated because some people didn't get this, did they?
That's right. Can you say that without burping?
Sorry. So they
you-
haven't
That's
done
my
it.
belly
said-
there.
Clean
Can you
the
see my
flat.
midriff there? Looking
I
like
know.
You
that.
said you could see my scones, do you remember?
Yeah. That's not on the DVD.
I keep patisseries in my pants.
Oh.
I never understood whether that was real or not.
No,
See,
it,
a lot of people
no, it wasn't.
didn't.
It was supposed to be that
It
they just
isn't.
cleaned up.
They just
I
cleaned
hate this
up.
noise, this cracking, it's horrible.
You can see as well throughout each episode, from episode
That's
1 onwards,
actually
the kind of the flat gets more and more stuff in it, and by the episode 3 there's more stuff, and then by episode 4 it's completely untidy.
By series 2, it's
It's
jam-packed.
very
There's the
jam-packed.
bathroom door in the background, which actually
doesn't
we never open that in the first
it's a
series,
nice
subject.
which is featured
it?
actually in the
Well,
second series.
The flat, it's very sunny.
It is sunny,
There's never
isn't
like
it?
that in my scenes.
You've got kind of your sort of, got the Baroque kind of like a
Yeah.
slightly gothic look upstairs, haven't you?
You're a bit backlit there, right?
It's nice,
Anybody
isn't it?
could look good like
I'm
that.
actually
There
drawing
was a big
Wolverine
bit that was
names
cut
as well.
out here, a very long scene involving Mark Heap, which you will also find on your DVD.
And the deleted
If you press the
scenes.
deleted scenes button and look at the scene called Sick Art and see what the hilarious scene that was cut out.
And we'll hopefully
And we'll
explain
talk about
why
that
on
later.
that.
Ah!
No, I
my
remember
word.
again. The art director Claire had to duck down, and then in the interim, while the camera went back to Jess, jumped up, changed the clock, put it back on the wall, and jumped out of shot in order to get that to work properly.
And then people at home just think it's been done by computer.
Yeah, as they always do.
Here you go.
Let's have a party. Let's have a house.
Now there's a classic Jess Flourish come up here.
Great. I can make
The cutting edge.
Oh yeah, and you pull
That's
the
a nice one.
things right out of your pants.
See, all the walls are really blank, which I
I
remember
love those
used
trousers.
to really piss off Andy Hollis.
Because
we had blank
it was
walls,
like
but-
institution green as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I quit. Deliberately, the flat is kind of like quite supposed to be really mundane.
Here she goes. Look at her. Look
What's
at her
this?
work.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, go!
Bingo!
Nice. Textbook.
Pegg responds with a look down. Oh, it's marvellous. I wish
This
we
is
had one of
like a
them little
comedy
pens we could write.
masterclass.
Nick Frost, who plays Mike, likes that bit when you jump in the air because your arms are really wonky. And
Just as
it tickles him.
contemporaries, watch this. There's sometimes like sort of some of her kind of fellow comedy actresses actually take episodes of Spaced Away and study them and say, how does she do it? I don't understand.
If you watch that bit there, that's our Field of Dreams reference, and I recently actually worked with the director of Field of Dreams,
Alden
it's
Robinson.
Marsha again
Alden
coming up.
Robinson.
This is
Oh, here
you
she
now.
go.
This is
and I
you
told
now,
him
Julie.
about the reference, and he actually, so he knows that there was a Field of Dreams reference in space, which was
Actually, the voice of Amber.
The voice of Amber is
It's
actually
Jessica.
me.
Here we go.
here she comes.
Hey.
Now, Julia, where did you get that voice from?
Look at that. Good. You look great in it. Look at that lovely skirt.
I got it from my friend Danny Levy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's a real person, Buddhist.
Uh-huh.
And I thought I looked gorgeous in that wig. I used to look at myself in my dressing room and think I was 25, but sadly now I see it on film. It wasn't,
You did look gorgeous.
wasn't
in that
quite
wig.
as good as I imagined.
I think if you hadn't looked so gorgeous, we probably wouldn't have got off with each other that day.
I never used to see you without your wig during the whole. I forgot what you looked like during the actual shooting of it, and with the second series as well. It would be an utter shock if I ever saw you without the wig.
We got
Really?
off with each other. We kissed a bit. I kissed Simon Pegg a bit.
Yeah.
I flirt with
Private.
Julia. That's my
Everyone
one
does.
perk. That's my one perk. Oh, what's textbook,
So
Brian?
where did that voice come
Lovely
from?
little joke there with Mark coming out, big smile.
I don't know really. It is my friend Danny Levy, who I
There-
thought was
You just
Out
did
of
it
his
in
head, but
rehearsals. Do
kind.
you remember when we did the
So
first
it's a
read-through?
man's
and you
voice.
just did
a
it?
man, yeah.
You just did it in the first read-through. And,
I did, and you had
What
to take me in a corridor at the rehearsal room and say, "What are you doing?"
the hell are you doing with our words?
What does he know that you've actually based one of your character you've done on him?
No, not yet. might
I was
say
based
no.
on a bloke.
He will now.
No.
Now this
Oh,
bit of,
Dunno.
and of course,
Be quiet, it's Mark Heap.
"Hello, Brian"
very good,
became a
It's the only catchphrase, really,
Yeah.
isn't it?
show. Go on, do
Yeah.
it.
Hello.
Close Encounters.
I
Yeah.
got told
Obviously.
off for having a catchphrase. It was
Right.
very 1980s, apparently.
I don't know.
Oh, my arse.
This is one of my least favourite scenes, from my point of view, because I was rather mistakenly trying to do this lifestyle of camera work. This was on the second day of filming, and I ditched it after that because I thought it looked rubbish.
Also, the scene was really
Thanks for
bizarre. The whole scene was supposed to be a series of questions which are answered with questions.
Yeah, there was a lot cut out of this, wasn't there?
But it didn't really work in the end.
There was a big scene actually just prior to that, just before this scene on the another scene with Marsha and Daisy on the landing, which also you'll be able to see on the delete scenes.
I had loads of fun.
Line
That's
with that.
about the only
blanket.
reference I got in the entire 2 series is that mound of mash.
Good.
Because I saw that film. I haven't seen any of the others. I
You-
know what
you
I
only
was
just
doing.
found out what
I
films
just
are.
said the lines. And it just shows it doesn't matter.
We originally wanted that to be one of the trailers, didn't we? We did.
It wasn't one of the trailers.
Oh, is that on the outtakes? Us when we
Pump
did
Up the Jam.
Pump up the jam.
Yeah,
Pump
yeah.
Up.
Pump up the volume.
Pump up the volume.
Yeah, that's Pump Up the
dance,
Jam.
dance.
Yeah, Pump
Yeah,
Up-
that's on the outtakes.
Is it? Oh,
yeah.
great.
Hopefully.
Paperboy.
There you go.
What about you?
Lots of fussiness with props and stuff in this.
Yeah.
Notepads,
I
foil.
went to pick up. I
too much
to pick
going
up
on.
my pad with the wrong hand there.
I'm waiting. It's gonna be great. I'm just gonna go and try.
I make a kind of Rick Mail rickety chair face there. I always think, oh, God damn it, get your own
Oh,
style.
here he is
Ah,
again.
James Lance again.
Yeah, hang on, she's just getting her clothes on.
Oh, now there's the
yeah.
first kind of
What's all that
indication
about?
that Tim and Mike sort of like Daisy and is a little bit peeved that she's got a boyfriend. But does he? We don't know.
There's a bit of a nod to that in the second series as well.
Do you
that
think he does,
exchange.
Gina?
I'm not thinking about anything.
What?
I think he's a bit gorgeous, and I've
you know-
worked with him before.
James Lance
What
is
did
going
you
out
go
with
with him
Jean
before on?
Garofalo.
I don't know who
Don't
she
keep
is.
saying
Is
that.
she-
but
is she?
This is like this is recorded in history. What if they're not going out now? How do you know?
Well, that things happen. That happens. It happens.
They
in
say he
life.
went out with her, and
Yeah.
then we're all right.
Oh, I
aren't we?
went out with her then.
She might sue. Didn't you play?
I heard he was going out with Sue.
You did another thing with
I
James
played
Lance
James
as
Lance's
as his girlfriend.
girlfriend before, yeah. What's it called? You know, the cops thing, the spoof documentary thing.
Police Like Us.
Police Like Us, yeah.
People like
I
us.
really like that
You said
foil
the
thing.
cops.
not
I
a
like
I
that
do
foil
that at
thing.
home.
It's a very quick, easy way to make a party a
Now,
bit
whose
jazzy.
joke was this?
This was made up really late. This is my joke.
I did. No.
Which
It's actually
one?
my line, the final.
Now it starts.
Bako the foil.
Was it
Yeah,
really?
yeah.
I beg
Thank
your
you.
pardon. God.
That's you. And now this is
Oh, here we go. This is
Yeah, it was.
this is
Prefab
vintage.
Sprout.
Was
Vintage
Nick Frost?
All right.
Okay.
Hot dog, jumping
Come on, Jess, sing along.
almond
Cookies.
Jess is actually going to release a CD of karaoke music in which she
love
sing
this.
the wrong words.
It's actually one of the most pleasurable songs to sing along
Almond
to.
cookies. I love that.
Joe Cornish from Adam and Joe invited me to a Prefab Sprout concert because he thought because I'd used it in this, I was a big fan of Prefab Sprout. And I
Why didn't they ask me?
I felt slightly bad to kind of.
Did you
We
turn
had
it
a lot
down?
of kind of. What was the other song that we were going to sing? American Pie, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
We even got it cleared and everything.
Here's our strange reference to 2001, which
How nice. This was originally in one of the original drafts. This was a lot more involved. The
Yeah,
target
and
with the fridge, wasn't it?
Yeah, and
Went on for a
the
lot
fridge
longer.
short-circuited the whole house.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
why it went.
And
there
then
was a
the
blackout at the
spaceship
end.
came down, and
Oh, there
everyone
was, wasn't
went
there? Yeah.
in.
there was
and
like it was an
then
early draft of two.
Daisy
Got
Daisy
loads
from
of-
2001.
The fridge.
I just explained this. You know the HAL 9000 in 2001.
No, I
the
don't know what you're
computer.
talking
Computer.
about. I don't know what that
2001.
fridge gag was about.
Simon's sister, Katie
Oh,
Pegg.
here's my sister.
Katie Pegg.
Not
there,
her,
on the
not
left.
her.
Not her,
I
not
like
her,
this bit.
not her, not her.
Not her.
The
Ah,
strange
that's
farewell,
Katie
that's
Pegg.
Katie Pegg. Who
looking
was really
fantastic.
bizarre trying to hit on my own sister.
I
It was
know.
very strange. And
Strange.
here's Nick
I
Frost.
found it quite erotic.
Wait,
Wink, tongue out, bang.
fuck off. Very
Fuck
good.
off.
She was actually very
look,
good
it's
in
Nick
that scene.
Frost.
I had to just close my eyes and allow my sister to say fuck
Nick
off.
Frost, I think, has got a kind of like James B. Seeking look here. He looks like he's kind of
Oh,
from
lovely
the film.
Mike. Look, he's bought a landmine.
There's a thing here
Do you know what that
between.
means? That's a description of a
How
salute.
you do a salute?
A salute,
Perfect
yeah.
salute.
There's a thing here between Mike and Brian, which always used to really make us laugh and them laugh as well, which was that they never really spoke to each other. They just kind of looked at each other's
Static there in the
necks.
room, completely inert.
But you don't really see it enough, I don't
Oh,
think.
I like
but
this
it's-
guy.
Artist. Writer.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
here we go. Here's the hard techno. And we wanted to get across the idea that even though that Daisy and Tim and their friends are young, they are
Yeah.
not the
They-
youngest,
yeah,
you
so
know,
that-
and you
Amber-
never are
Amber-
the youngest.
And Amber kind of represents the sort of the unseen future because you actually
Exactly.
never actually see Amber.
Well, that's something we do quite a lot. I mean, probably
Yeah.
in the sex as well. It's just
You
I
always
like the
are,
idea
yeah.
because always in sitcoms about 20-somethings, Katie Carmichael.
Here's Twist. I love that.
Oh,
She's
it-
fluffing her nipples up.
Always in like sitcoms, it's always like the kind of the 20-somethings are always really cool, and we wanted to be,
Yeah, we wanted
People
to
to be
actually,
younger than
Yeah,
us.
exactly.
and we wanted our 20-somethings to feel old.
Yeah.
Exactly. And there's
Hence all the
Caroline
80s
Clark
stuff.
coming through the.
Oh, yeah.
Who's
Hugh
who
lives in
works
the
on
news,
show.
as you would,
Me reading now.
an American edition of 2018.
We had a
Enough
problem with
about
the fact that we didn't, we couldn't clear certain comics, and so I ended up reading quality comic kind of compilations of Judge Dredd, which
I
I,
hate
don't
that
think
bit.
Tim would ever
Which bit?
read.
Mark, you can tell he fancies Twist
Oh.
the minute we see her. I hate her. Look. She's got all the gear on that I wanted to wear as well.
So
A
bitter.
lot
All
of
the
bitterness in the
budget.
costume department. All of a sudden.
So bitter.
That Chinese jacket is just
It's
great.
good. Now that's based on you're going for Shirley MacLaine in Sweet Charity, aren't you?
Yes.
Here we go for another kind of mad moment of
More business.
more business.
My mum used to have a pig who looked like Shirley MacLaine.
Was it reincarnated?
It could have been. Well, she's not dead yet, so
I thought maybe it was Shirley MacLaine believes in real. She could be the pig.
maybe it's her parallel self. I don't know.
Guys,
Spaced.
this is
Lots of
quite an odd
business going on
scene as
here.
well.
Here
We
she
had to
comes.
get Brian here she comes. Bang! Now this is a good outfit for you.
This is
You
a great
look-
outfit.
You look really great here.
Yeah, this is actually my own jewellery, saved from my hippie
Got your little
youth,
bindi on.
for which I was not given any higher fee, actually.
Yeah, everything's just a
Look at this. Here's the
with you.
catchphrase. Oh.
Now this is where. Oh no,
Oh,
this is
look, daggers at dawn.
the rivals.
Cat-
No,
Fight.
my bindi, in case anybody's missed it.
And Jess has got a sort of strange little sequin on your eye, haven't you? There.
I've got 2. I've got 1 on each.
Have you?
Yeah, no skimping on this show.
On our show. There's
I
Twist's
think,
first moment of tactless horribleness.
Oh no, she's already been tactless in that previous scene.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's my favourite Twist bits actually.
I
is
love
when
that bit.
her just tactlessness in this episode. Right behind the door.
I can't get how young we look sometimes in the first series. It's depressing.
Here he comes.
Here's Brian saving the day.
Da-da. And we were amazed that they let us use this music.
He's so
weren't we?
gorgeous. Look.
But
The,
they just kind of. They did.
Now this little bit here referred back to a scene that was cut out.
Yeah, the little gunshot.
Because when one of the scenes that was cut out, which you'll see, Simon, you did that to Mark.
Yes, I did, Edgar.
And so it was a callback. I think
That's
they
right.
call it in.
But it worked.
Look at
Look
those.
at that
Look at those
calf.
killer pins.
Care
This
to
is a
comment?
particularly bad moment for me.
Oh, I
Why?
like the pins.
Should have had the lycra tights. Sorry.
Oh, it's all regret with you.
It is regret, bitterness, and
Bloody
disappointment.
regret.
Isn't it?
Oh yeah, there's your strange tears.
Oh yeah.
Well, that was a wart.
Do Daisy and Tim smoke? They occasionally do, don't they? Fags.
At a party, yeah.
They smoke.
She looks like a turd in a wig. She could at least afford a new hairbrush, a t-shirt or something.
I like that Katie nibbles the celery. Hardly takes it like an atom off it.
Flat. Be better when you've unpacked and cleaned up a little.
Oh dear.
This is it, actually.
Very mean.
Tim seems nice and friendly, doesn't he?
She's not a good friend, Twist.
There's
There's another one of Jason's,
another use of.
Drawings.
I remember
Jason
that. We actually rewrote that scene quite late on.
Yes, you
'Cause it
did.
was
You
kind
wrote
of
that
like-
bit about
yeah.
the turd in the wig, didn't you? It's just
Well, no,
funny.
I was just sort of like trying to kind of like, because the thing about Twist and Daisy's friendship is it's sort of very kind of unquantifiable because you never actually really find out why they're actually friends, but they just kind of are by default almost, which is
We put a little bit
slightly
in the
odd to
biog
write
about how
for.
they came to be friends, didn't we? If you look on the character bios.
yeah.
And here we go again with the repeat, with a scaled down version of what you saw in episode 1.
Pain.
We get our money's
We
worth
actually
out of
used this 3 times in the first two series, don't we?
Yeah, it's in the second series as well. And why not?
And why not?
It's
was
like
a good
Brian's
moment.
greatest hits.
Exactly what you want.
Here's the first moment that Twist and Brian might, for some bizarre reason, be on the same wavelength.
Oh, time warp.
Now,
Which is a shame because I have appeared in the Rocky Horror
I
Show
know,
there you
Twice.
go.
twice.
You didn't get to fucking
Twice
sing it, did
in
you?
my long career.
We had an argument on this because I really don't like the Rocky Horror Show. I just it just annoys
Oh,
me.
yeah.
No, you had to
And
be
I-
there.
I like
you had
it.
to be there.
And all that kind of like, I don't know.
it's more the fact.
Gets
I mean, this
on
whole
my
speech
wick.
here is more about the kind of just sort of student staples, really. Because I remember I sort of suggested the thing about the blue posters or whatever, because I just been watching This Life and stuff, and I just kind of noticed that always they have like fucking. It's always posters of films that people haven't really seen, like kind of the Big Blue and Betty Blue and the Blues Brothers. And what's the other one? Blue Velvet.
Blue Velvet.
The Four Blues. But that's
You
exactly
see-
it. I was after we put this bit in, I watched an episode of This Life, and they had Betty Blue
Yeah.
and the Blues Brothers on the walls.
Yeah.
And there you go.
It's also the first time you really see kind of Tim and Mike's kind of dynamic,
Yeah.
you know, as a friendship. You really establish that kind of comic kind of.
This was really late in
Sort
the
of
day.
duo.
This
Oh,
scene
yeah, we
was
did it
really
in one
late.
shot, 'cause
Yeah,
we
it
ran
was
out
one
of
This
time.
is
shot.
Tony Way
Tony Way, the lovely Tony Way.
playing the paper
Here's
boy.
the paperboy. Guacamole window. That's a joke.
What's Katie doing in the background there? Bit of business?
Fizzing around. Wearing a dress.
I like this joke.
This is a good joke. This is a joke, of course, which refers to the popular drug ecstasy.
Oh, there is American Pie in the background.
Yeah.
I think by this point we'd oh yeah, we used it later on, didn't we?
Did we have? Wasn't Past the Dutchie in there or something? Or
Oh yeah, it was, but it sounded too weird.
it was too kind of.
It was a bit too much.
This is our Reservoir Dogs thing, but we didn't do a wide of it because it just seemed that Reservoir Dogs had been done so much.
Oh, we
and
did
was-
do a wide and then we cut it out.
Yeah, we
so
cut it
thought
out. It was just.
Rose Dogs have been done to death. Although we did do a Pulp Fiction gag in series 2. So
Yes, we did.
So what does that mean?
We're rubbish.
Ah, the very first.
Flashback
Now,
with little Mike and little
little
Timmy.
Kai, and I can't remember the other kid's name. Is it Gregory? I'm not sure. I can't remember. We'll find out later.
I like the fact that he's got a little moustache.
Yeah, he's got a little moustache, and he's also later on got Nick's voice as well.
Yes, yes.
And Nick Frost will regale you of tales of making his younger self, I'm sure.
It was really kind of. It was really cool.
Not
wasn't
into it, was he?
Not into it at all. We had a lot of trouble doing that scene.
Lovely tune.
Slapping Nick.
How did they get the
was very
graphics
funny.
behind the bush?
You
They
did.
Just,
That's
were they on
smoke.
wires? What's going on here?
Something's weird.
Some kind of
think
chemical-
Who's down there?
Lights
Who's
this
on the lap
time.
doing a Julian Tailforth?
Daisy getting off with the
Daisy getting up. You enjoyed doing this, didn't
Well, there
you?
was some
I
kind
kept
of
asking you to
contentious
go.
about it. There's some kind of like.
Look
was
at you
it,
licking
"Are you
his-
sure?"
licking his
and I was like,
lips.
of course.
Didn't I keep asking you to go a bit further with it?
No.
Yes, you
You-
did.
you
and
did,
she
actually.
wouldn't.
Sick little
I did,
imagination.
didn't I?
You did.
I
You
would
said,
have done.
I said, go on, go for it.
Get to second.
When
you
you had a
said.
bit of a.
Second base.
Try and
That
get
was
to
when you
second
were
base.
remembering it later that evening.
No,
You know what I mean?
Julia remembers.
You should
look
have
at
let me
now.
have
Look
a-
at Nick's. Look at Nick's drunk acting in the background. It's
Check out
brilliant.
Frost doing drunk.
Look at Frost being drunk.
I seem to remember he was drunk. He was very responsible when it came to.
Here we watch
filming.
Nick. Watch Nick in the
He napped
background.
2 cans of special brew before every take.
I like this Arctic gag here. Here we go.
This is the noise of the wind.
Look, there he is.
Oh.
Very
There he
good. Tony's still playing on his Game Boy though. Was this a line from anything? This
No,
isn't
it's
it.
just
It wasn't,
a
was
kind of
it?
generic sort of.
Somebody was.
Well, look,
sorting
I think
out.
we were sort of
Stands up.
doing. There was some vague
Generic
kind of
melodrama
Independence
lines.
Day rousing,
Yeah,
it was that kind of
kind
like-
of thing.
And then this. Join us.
Which is, of
It's
course, from Evil Dead.
1 and 2. Yeah? Happy now?
So now you know.
I like this.
That's a great shot of that goes up with Jess.
And of
This
course,
is-
this is.
This is
Closing
really
Cannons
funny
of the
doing
Third
this. We
Kind.
had,
Oh god, this was funny. The getting the people to dance and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
One of which we had a couple of extras, and we had
our own
Rebecca.
staff.
Because we initially, when we all put our sunglasses on, we all put them on at the same time, and it looked too Blues Brothers, so we put them all on at different times, which is actually.
And Nick's puts them on over his own glasses. There
Which
you
is
go.
a touch
But we suddenly
of
we
comedy
panicked
one.
after we'd done the shot and said, "Oh no, I'm wearing the wrong glasses. They're not right for my character."
Who did?
And we all did. We were saying, like, "I wouldn't wear these."
And then they go up.
But
and
we'd
it's
already done the shot, so. But I don't think anyone noticed, really. Do you?
I don't think anyone cared or noticed.
Now, Julia, just before you go, talk us through this kind of classic seduction now.
Yeah,
What
this is where you should have let me have a crack at that paperboy.
Hey!
I've had every other bloke in the series.
The leg is
Let's
going
face it.
Come on,
Good
talk us
leg
through it. Give us
acting,
some
look at
running commentary on
I'm
this.
now having my 900th silk cut of the shoot.
Well, you were
Big
on the
regrets.
herbals then,
You're on the
though,
Honey
weren't you?
Rose second series,
Sorry?
aren't you?
You were on the honey roast. Were you
Yeah,
on the
by the
herbals?
second series I was on the Honey Rose, which is even worse.
Hang on, there she goes. What's she
There
up
she
to?
goes. Watch this. Textbook.
No, no.
Look at that. Flick the hair. Hang on a minute. Wait for it. Go on, say it.
He is so fucked.
Julia Dinkin. Thanks, Julia.
Hello again, Edgar Wright here.
Jessica Hines, no Stevenson.
That's Pegg.
Kevin Smith's still hanging out.
This is episode 3, and we were just talking on the episode 2 commentary about the fact that it was on between Friends and Frasier when it was first broadcast. And I remember vividly that one of our proudest moments to do with Spaced is that we used to have parties around each other's houses when we used to watch episodes. And when this episode came on,
So unjaded in those days.
after Friends, so Friends had just finished, and then there's a Channel 4 announcement saying, "Next up, Spaced, which contains strong language and violence from the outset." And we all went, "Hey!" Bang!
And I'd
Exploding
never seen
head.
you and Simon so excited when you
Oh,
were doing
yeah.
this.
This was kind of where Shaun of the Dead was
made
born.
up.
really.
We were
Really,
like-
it is, isn't it?
On this morning,
this is
yeah.
very Shaun of the Dead.
The weird thing about this sequence is this is the first thing I ever edited in Spaced. I didn't start with episode 1, I started with episode 3.
Because you just wanted to cut together a cool looking
just like,
scene.
And you know why? Exactly, but also I wanted to cut together the cool bit because at the rap party, one of the other crew members had said something which really upset me, and I was in a really foul mood,
yeah, I
and
remember.
I had to leave.
That was around at
See,
Steve
you are
Coogan's
prickly,
house.
He's
dude.
grumpy.
You know
Totally
what? I'll
prickly.
tell you what they said. I won't tell you who said it, but I'll tell you what they said. And they said somebody who was a bit drunk and a bit kind of like
And the other.
cynical. And the
And
other.
the rest.
It wasn't just drink. I said, "How do you think the show went?" He goes, "Yeah, it's all right, but I wouldn't put a single shot of it on my show reel."
What a cunt.
Listen, get over it. I
That's
can't
pretty
believe you're
harsh.
still talking about it
No,
now.
no. But the
I
thing was,
remember really well.
what happened is I felt so upset that I left the rap party, and the next day I was so down about it that I went into the edit and said to Chris, the editor, said, let's just start with the zombie bit.
I remember it really clearly because I was
edited-
living in Steve Coogan's house, and we were at that place in Marlborough Yard, and we were up on the roof, and it was like one of those teenage parties where it suddenly all kicks off, and everyone's going, "Leave him! It's not worth it! It's not worth it!" And Edgar stormed out, and it was like, "Oh my god!" Like, all rap parties should end like
It's
that. Anyway.
amazing that you
rap
and
parties.
Simon
Rap
were
party
able to
series
remain
2.
friends
Ooh.
after him saying something. I hadn't seen this first, as previously mentioned. I saw Shaun of the Dead, and Shaun of the Dead is an intimidating film to watch. When I think at that point I'd made like 5 flicks, and I watched that flick, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is a first-time filmmaker. This fucking thing is insane. It's amazing."
Not first-time filmmaker though. Not my first film.
What was it? What was your first?
I made
film?
a film in 1994 called A Fistful of Fingers.
How long was it? A feature?
It was 78 minutes long, so just
And was it released?
longer than Cloverfield and Rambo.
On 16.
Was it released?
It was in one cinema in London.
As far as I knew, Shaun of the Dead was your first flick. And then when I saw Spaced, I was like, oh, now it all makes sense. Then suddenly I wasn't so intimidated. I was like, well, he fucking trained for 2 seasons on Spaced.
Actually, weirdly, there's somebody in this episode coming up, but I kind of got my break. I did this film straight out of art college when I was like 20. And
Oh, were you an art school kid?
I went to art college for 2 years and did like a foundation course, which I don't know what the American equivalent of that is, but it's not a proper degree, basically.
Right.
And I'd done this film which kind of, I'd done all these short films which were all kind of very spoofy, and I'd done this film with all my school friends, and it basically, let's just say it wasn't Clerks.
Right.
It was just sort of, it was fun, but it was kind of so kind of like light and frothy and silly, and it just wasn't kind of like a serious like first film to make. And I realised as soon as I'd made it that maybe, I wasn't ashamed of it, but I realised that it wasn't like, there are great first films. There's Clerks, there's Reservoir Dogs, there's The Evil Dead, and Fistful of Fingers was not in that bracket. But the thing is that the guy in this episode who plays Vulva, David Walliams, who again, is a huge star in the UK now, thanks to a show called Little Britain, which they also show on BBC America. Him and his partner Matt Lucas, comedy partners, had seen my film, The Prince Charles, which was the one cinema in London that showed it, and they asked me to do their...
the one in Leicester Square?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They asked me to do their... they were doing a show on the Paramount Comedy Channel, which was like sort of a cable comedy channel, and they asked me to do their sketch show, which is the first time I met Jessica, because Jessica was in one of the sketches.
Yes, I was.
A Puppet in My House.
Puppet
A
in
Puppet
My
lives-
House when I played... Who did I played some
wife.
You were
some
playing
wife. That was
a
hilarious.
sitcom spoof called A Puppet Lives in My House.
Like Alf.
It was like an Alf spoof.
It was
A
hilarious.
puppet lives in my house.
I played some Mimi or something like that.
So I was very lucky that I'd made this film when I was 20, which I felt was not up to scratch,
Right.
and was not in the kind of even in the top 100 of film debuts or top 200.
Have you been... When was the last time you went to the Prince Charles?
Like 2 weeks ago with Jessica, because
Edgar invited me to the British
first
premiere
ever-
of the Grindhouse Double Bill.
Yeah.
With his
Oh, they showed it all as
trailer,
one
and
whole
it was
thing.
absolutely fantastic. Edgar introduced the whole thing.
Isn't it fucking nuts how the bar is just the Quentin Tarantino bar?
they have Kevin
Downstairs.
Smith. They have the Kevin Smith toilet.
They only have the Kevin Smith toilet because
how does that make you
I did a
feel?
Q&A there, and I was like, I opened with like, Jesus Christ, has Quentin ever been here? And they're like, never. And I was like, and you built a whole...
That's not true.
At that
He's been
point,
there
he
lots-
hadn't been there, though. When
Oh,
I
really?
did the Q&A, which was 2 years ago. I said, the dude hasn't even been here. You built a whole fucking bar to him. Can I at least get like a fucking bathroom stall with a glory hole? And the next night, I went back and they made a fucking Kevin Smith stall.
I know, I've
I
seen
got
that
a toilet.
stall.
I feel good about it.
I think I've used it.
Yeah, me too.
I only use it.
So
What I was going to say in terms of the thing is, I really felt like when I got to do TV, I kind of, for me, like TV was doing college, and I was incredibly fortunate to be like 21 and directing TV comedy, and I felt all through this process, right through Space, that I was kind of just, I never went on any training course. Like there is kind of no real sort of training for like sort of,
Just life.
you know, just
life.
But it was brilliant to kind of be able to kind of like experiment in public, and you know, and then like, you know, this was the show that I kind of felt like sort of I know I did think sort of.
you were
This is the
21
one.
when you shot this?
I was 24 when I did the first series of
when you
Space.
did the first series.
Yeah, 21 when I did the show with Matt and Dave and Jessica, and 24 when I shot
What were you
this. I
doing
had my
at age
25th.
21.
I was still at university. I was reading The Watchmen and living in a sort of squatty
I was
flat.
living at my parents' and just trying to get laid, working at a convenience store. Like, it's so weird when I meet ambitious people.
I was having a lot of sex when I was 21. But
Were you really?
Not really achieving anything.
When you get
Living
a show
with your
on
parents
the air,
and trying to get laid sounds kind of weird.
Yeah, it is. I wasn't trying to get laid by them, but I was trying to get laid when they weren't around. When you get a show on the air in the UK, does it like, do chicks follow around you and whatnot, or no?
I don't really.
Is it a pussy magnet? This kind of
Not
thing?
really. I mean, a bit, I suppose. But I was kind of like, I was still. Oh, mind you, that put me in the.
Was it like a low-level pussy magnet? It would attract some pussies and not others?
It's like a fridge pussy magnet, kind of. Not very conductive, but enough to stay on the
It should be
fridge.
a fridge pussy magnet, shouldn't it? A pussy
How is it?
magnet
Are you
for-
in a thing?
that
For
goes
a
on your fridge.
Totally.
That'd be
on the
great.
fridge.
Just a vagina on the fridge. Simple as that.
Hairy or not hairy?
I think most of
Brazilian.
I don't know why
just
I'm
a
even
little
following
landing
this
strip.
up.
Yeah.
Tasteful.
You can get a whole set of them, different ones.
Yeah, pussy
you?
magnets.
Yeah.
We just had
Funny
huge fat
magnets.
cocks as well, which is one of my favourite jokes in the show.
It's worth pointing out that a lot of drug use in the show.
Yeah, there is a lot of drug use.
On
And
a
you guys
network
got to
show.
curse how many times per episode?
Twice in the first, once in
Twice?
the first, twice in the second.
Yeah, one F
fuck
word
per episode in the
and then
first
in the
series?
second series 2 fucks.
But it was, I mean, the thing with the smoke and even in the clubbing episode,
Right.
we never wanted to actually say, look at us, look at what we're doing. We wanted it to be the fact that it was very much part of everyday life, and it wasn't a big deal. There wasn't some sort of moral judgment afterwards. You can take E and not die. You can smoke weed and not get. Well, no, actually, she gets really paranoid there.
Right.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
Well, I
we were
mean,
never
yeah,
making a comment about
which
it. You
which
know?
is always the case with me. And
It wasn't
I
a very
don't-
special episode of Space
Yeah.
where the gang deals with drugs.
Yeah, Daisy has an intervention.
They don't really. That's a kind of a very American phenomenon of like the serious episode of Different Strokes.
Yes.
Where there'd be a paedophile.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's
the
a
guy,
famous one.
The guy, yeah, the famous. Well, that's the dude who ran the bike shop, and he was real friendly and shit. And then he tried to touch somebody.
Is that
And
true?
Shit went south. Yeah, it
Not
was an
in
episode
Different
of Different
Strokes.
Totally. And
But
that's one of the
essentially-
episodes where there's not nearly as much.
What are you
canned
talking about,
laughter.
Willis?
Yeah, really. What you
Essentially,
talking
Gary
about?
Coleman was legal. He just looked small.
He was, but in the show, he
the
was
irony.
still a kid.
Off
In
camera,
real
he
life,
was fucking like a rabbit.
I think he was 42 or something like that. But so it could have been consensual with the bike peddler.
That's what the bike peddler was saying. He's got a stunting disease. He's not a kid.
This is clearly an adult. But yeah, whenever they do that in the States, it's very set apart. You can't have a show where people are like,
using
just
drugs in a normal
casually,
way.
yeah, the way most people do in real
Do,
life.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
kind of like, let's set it apart and make a message out of it.
That's it. It
What's
had to be commented
interesting
on.
is that kind of in this sort of, this is 9 years old, but since then, especially on Channel 4, the network that show it, the kind of the boundaries have broken down even more to the point where, like we were talking
Now
before
you can
about
show anal.
Yeah. Interestingly,
Graphic close-ups.
Interestingly, talking about the whole kind
It's
of drugs references,
compulsory now.
It was, in the way where you kind of you write and you don't really think about what you're writing. You write because you're just trying to kind of you're remembering experiences and you're trying to kind of create a sort of reality from your environment. And there was one shot when right at the beginning when Daisy's leaving the flat, and it was kind of based on various experiences I'd either had of kind of leaving squats or whatever I was living to move on to the next place. And in one particular point, there's a room full of people who were all just kind of slumped and the thing. And I just wrote that because that's kind of vaguely what I remember feeling like, because I was always just really kind of upbeat and chatty, and I never kind of really got into that sort of really heavy duty
The sort of smoky
scene.
haze
I
kind
was always too like up. I was like,
Right.
okay, well where do I go next? I was just like, that was how I naturally was. And I didn't realise until afterwards people said that looked like a room full of heroin addicts. And then I thought, oh yeah, they probably were.
I grew up around smack. What did you know?
But it was actually, it was kind of strange the way that sort of happened.
Was there ever any pressure to like get Tim and Daisy together?
Well, if we'd have carried it on, I always wanted to do do like a third and final series, and the end of that be a spectacular, coming together of those two characters, because I think they'd always loved each other, and it was like,
right.
I would love to have seen it, just really given the audience what they wanted and done it really, really well, and have a big old snog and have it end there. But as it turned out, it didn't, and that will always be a kind of a regret for me, because I
You got
would
to
like
snog everybody else.
Yeah, I
right?
wanted
and
to
you didn't get to
snog
snog me. Deal with it.
and that I got to snog Julia, and I probably snogged Katie once at university at a party, so to
And
tick
really
Jess off.
quite prolonged snogs as well. I mean, unnecessarily long, particularly in the case of your girlfriend at the time.
Oh, Lucy.
Lucy.
That was all her. She just wanted to give us a big kiss. I wanted it. We both did. It was kind of the whole
I
point
wanted to
was
snog
that
Colin, but,
yeah, who was actually a female. So that was
And
a
snog
lesbo
for the American
dog,
audience is
snogging
ass
is
eating.
yeah,
kissing.
it's eating A. It's A to M basically. But yeah,
Never
it was,
go ask
it was,
him out.
that was kind of. That's why we did the little prologue at the end of not prologue, epilogue at the end of the documentary on the DVD, where you see Tim and Daisy with the baby, because we never got to actually have that moment. But yeah, of course they were on that track, you know.
But there is it's funny when we did this documentary for the special edition, and we went around all the locations together. Like, remember we sat around at lunch, and I think sort of it was, there was this sort of the germ of an idea of doing like 10 years later and doing a catch-up thing. And actually having seen Richard Linklater's Before Sunset and seeing how well that came back, and you just thought, oh wow, I could watch one of these every 10 years and see where these people have got to. And it's a tricky thing with space, because it's definitely kind of, there's something, about the fact that we were the age when we were making it, and do you know what I mean? And even between the first and second series, we kind of all are in, our lives changed and stuff. And so there was definitely something with the first series where we were really in that mindset, and then you can't kind of stay like that forever,
Right.
Can't stay like that forever.
That's true. It'd be weird to do it 10 years later, because it wouldn't be the same dynamic at all.
Well, we thought about it. I mean,
And the worst thing we could do was spoil it,
Yeah.
But we did think about ways of kind of like carrying it on. I mean, you guys were kind of ploughing, so you were just going on ahead and doing your thing, and I was kind of doing some things, but it sort of, it was always something.
Don't be so modest.
But it was always sort of in the back there. I mean, we had ideas for how to kind of go on, and
Yeah,
ultimately,
we had that amazing idea for the first
yeah,
episode
and ultimately
with
we
them
were
in
going
a
to show
restaurant.
Amber, because it was going to be Amber's 18th birthday, and when she turned 18, that's when she was going to become visible.
Yeah.
But it was just sort of just didn't happen. But it's a kind of a shame. But I think in the end, in terms of Tim and Daisy, I think ultimately, exactly as you said, the fact is that we had that little kind of flash moment in the kind of DVD commentary bit, and I think in a way that's where we're always probably going to head. The fact that they ultimately would end up.
I got really
together.
I got not annoyed at all, because I love the
kind
show.
of went
but
to and fro with it.
With The Office, I always kind of thought they managed to do with Tim and Dawn, strangely similarly named, with Tim and Daisy. It was like this relationship.
Where was that in relation to space?
We picked. Ricky was in the second season of Space. The second season was shot just before The Office came out.
Yeah, the second series of Spaced was on around the same time as the first series of The Office.
Yeah.
And Space debuted on BBC America in 2005 or something like that.
Yeah, well after the fact.
2003, I think it was.
Because the first series of Space was 1999, the second series 2001.
Wow.
And it was,
I think they were shown on Bravo before BBC America.
Wasn't there a channel called Trio or something that was shown?
Yep, there's other.
But butchered for adverts, and obviously the profanity cut out. And so this is the first time anyone in America who hasn't got the Region 1, 2 DVD will be able to see it in its full kind of, unexpurgated form.
In all its glory. We didn't even talk about all the supporting players and whatnot.
Yeah, and Nick was my mate who I just wanted to put on the television because he was so funny.
I said it at a Q&A that we did after Hot Fuzz, but I'll say it here for the record. It's insane that dude doesn't get more credit as an actor, because I've now seen him in 3 performances, in Spaced, in Shaun of the Dead, and in Hot Fuzz. And he is completely fucking different each time. I mean, normally like a second banana is kind of like, he fills. We got Jason Mewes in our flicks, and Jason Mewes is pretty much Jason Mewes in every flick. That guy has done 3 completely different performances. He's like 180 degrees from Mike in this show as he is in Shaun of the Dead, and then another 180 from Hot Fuzz.
Simon essentially kind of like, you essentially lied to the producers about what Nick had done before to get him the part.
Yeah.
Which was...
and they checked IMDb, and there was a Nick Frost on there, but it wasn't him, but they thought it was.
Remember, because originally in the original character breakdown, he wasn't in, and you came and you were like, well, we've got to have that character.
Yeah, who Nick invented, to be fair. It was like a character he'd invented. But I always think of him as being like my Jason Mewes, because, the kind of guy that you bring along, you put in, and he just fucking shows everybody up. Everyone kind of...
Yeah, but I would give him the edge. He's a little more versatile than Mewes.
Than Jason.
Mewes is very good at what Mewes does, but like he's definitely, Nick's more versatile, I think.
My sister, it's enduring memory of Nick, in fact, is when I was kind of hanging out with you guys before we did Space, and in your flat in Busby Place in Kentish Town. And my sister kind of, I don't know, I can't remember why we were coming around to say hi or something. Anyway,
Zoe.
And with Zoe, my sister, and Nick was just there darning his socks.
They get on very well, I seem to
He was
remember. Zoe
actually
and Nick.
darning his own socks.
was
There's
mending.
not many men
With his own hair.
with his own beard hair. He was darning his own socks. There's not many men who darn their own socks.
He was like,
He's
he'd
a very
come back
special
from a...
person.
He followed a girl back from a kibbutz to London, to North London. Got a job in this restaurant in Cricklewood.
Actually followed her back. Did she know?
Yeah, he kind of like was
following her?
pursuing. No, he went back to London with her to be with her, and then I happened to move to Cricklewood, and the girl I moved to London with, happened to get a job in that restaurant, and that's how I think now to how easy it would have been not to have crossed paths with him, and it kind of frightens me a little bit because he's obviously, he's still my to borrow your phrases we always do, my heterosexual life partner.
Hetero life mate.
But I remember like during I remember when I first met Nick. I think at the Battersea Arts Centre, and he was so quiet, he didn't say anything
This
at
is
all.
the one time I will reference
love
the
this.
show. I fucking love this. I think
I
this
love
is
this.
hysterical.
I love writing this.
You did, yeah.
Did you write this piece?
Yeah.
It is genius, the show. And
Because
this dude was
because
tremendous.
actually there's a part of me that is a sort of frustrated, kind
Performance
of
artist.
fine artist, performance artist. There's that point where I kind of, would really like actually to take myself extremely seriously, but kind of can't allow it to happen. So this is a perfect way to kind of explore that.
I remember I fought you a little bit on it as well because I thought it's too obvious to kind of like send up experimental theatre, and I come out of Bristol University where we'd done a lot of it, and I was still a bit sort of principled about it, but yeah, I was totally wrong, and this is this is all jest, this bit.
Brian has tears in his eyes.
Yeah.
I think that David Walliams, the guy who plays Volva, who he's the guy who's huge in the UK at the moment. Like his
says it all,
final
really,
bit at the
doesn't it?
end
Take a bite of
it always makes me laugh. Of like, it's not finished.
Yeah, he did that. Didn't he?
Now it's finished.
Why did you guys call it Spaced? Why the title?
It kind of came out of...
That was kind of you, wasn't it?
It was
I think you put a
it was
pioneered
originally
that.
was
Lunched
mine,
Out.
yeah. And then
was
I
it?
wanted to call it Dumped, but Jess went, fuck off.
It was originally called Lunched Out, right?
Yeah.
It's called Lunched Out, which is
A Brighton
when I was sort
phrase,
of
isn't it?
it's a Brighton thing because I used to hang around sort of Brighton is a seaside town in England, which
Kind
is
of
where
like
I grew
England,
up.
Santa Monica in a way.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's kind of maybe it's kind of gone that way. But when I was living there, it was like a kind of jazz town with a few skaters and a few kind of wannabe surfers. Although surfing on a pebble beach isn't fun, I don't think. But it was kind of I think we all thought we'd quite like to be in California, but obviously we weren't. We're in Brighton. So as a sort of female kind of wannabe surfy skater chick, I did used to hang out with lots of people who were kind of
lunched out.
But I remember
What
that was
does
a
that- what
phrase.
does the expression
Lunched
mean?
out is basically
Like
too
food baby.
too stoned to move.
What does that mean?
Like a food coma.
It's like no, it's not. It's too stoned to move. It's like he's completely lunched out. Mullered. That was another one. Lunched out or mullered.
Mong.
And that was a phrase that the sort of
Munted.
the
It's all the
skater
M's.
boys that I sort of like.
I wish the show had been
loitered
called
about
Monged,
with.
actually.
Used.
Let's do it.
It's like
Let's,
deeply
Monged.
un-PC.
Well, you know what?
Monged.
The reason it's called Spaced is because it was like, not just about being spaced out and a bit,
I was
high.
worried 'cause I thought
it
it
was about
sounded a bit
the gaps,
sci-fi.
the gaps
Yeah.
between each other, and the kind of living together and how close you are and not, and also there was obviously the science fiction thread in it. It just seemed to cover a lot of bases, and that's why it ended
And
up
also
being the
SP
title.
Simon Pegg.
Simon Pegg. But there's actually, if you take every cast
Yes,
member,
Simon,
you'll find
admit
a
it.
letter from Spaced in every single. You can spell. I always wanted to do a trailer for the third series. We had our names come up, and then one letter remained, and it eventually spelt Spaced, and that was really cool. Never happened.
let's do a lightning round of Britishisms for those watching the show who won't
Oh yeah, there must
know
be
what a
loads.
fucking
Can't
in
believe
there.
Jaffa
all the
cake
shit
is.
I used to do.
Jaffa cake. You can buy them here in the States. If you go to a British store, you'll find a Jaffa cake. Jessica, please.
Apparently they're a bit like Pim's cookies. That's the most obvious equivalent. I've never had a Pim's cookie. I want to have one. I'm going to go out now and go and buy some Pim's cookies so
Yeah.
I can eat one and
I don't
taste
even
it.
know what a Pim's cookie is.
Well, okay, neither do
been
I.
misinformed.
I'm
Yeah.
beginning to think maybe it's been invented to make me look foolish. A Jaffa cake, which I will describe brilliantly, is the kind of biscuit you will. It's totally unique.
Or cookie.
It is a cookie.
Yeah.
It's biscuit stroke cookie. It's a cookie in America. It's shaped like a small flying saucer without a pinnacle. It has no top, meaning either a slightly rounded bottom raised up to a little platform.
Yeah.
Now, that top of the cookie is covered with a chocolate coating. The little raised lump is like a tiny little circle of orange jelly. Hence the Jaffa orange.
What is it?
Okay?
What is Jaffa?
Jaffa orange. Jaffa is a kind of orange. It's a type of orange, Jaffa orange. So that it's basically, and then the spongy bit, the biscuit bit isn't like biscuit. It's not like digestive. It's not like hard biscuit. But it's not like sponge because it's not crumbly. It's like chewy sponge underneath, orange flavoured chewy sponge.
That sounds
it's
fucking
the ultimate,
terrible.
Oh no!
It's the
Do you know
ultimate.
what Jaffa
Orange
cakes-
in a cookie?
Yeah.
It's the ultimate
like-
stoner food. It's what you want at that moment. You think, oh,
Because
fucking
you
hell,
know
I want
why?
some
You
Jaffa
know why?
cakes.
It's because there's mentally what it feels like, because the spongy biscuit almost tastes like bread,
Here
so
we
it
go.
doesn't taste sweet. It almost, you kind of feel like you're eating something that's like a bread, like something wholesome. The orange, vitamins, it's a fruit. So you've
It's
kind of
chocolate
got
with sugar rush,
the
you
whole
mean?
thing is
Yeah.
like you've got your vegetable, you've got the protein, and you've got the carb,
It's a
and
full
you can
meal.
live on Jaffa
It's the
cakes.
food pyramid.
It's
It
a
is.
food pyramid, and you can eat maybe 10 or 12
And they're actually low
and
calorie
feel
as
quite
well.
full and feel very happy.
You can
about
eat a
that.
whole packet in one go. They're the ultimate
Easily,
munchies
easily,
food.
because they're
What
not
is
too
that?
sweet.
Ultimate munchies
What is it?
food.
You referred to a digestive biscuit. What is that?
It's like a crumbly biscuit.
What would you call
It's a
that
crumbly
here?
tea- it's a
I'm
crumbly
sure
tea
you've got
I don't
biscuit.
know, but I've heard that
It's a slightly
many
salty
times
cookie.
and seen it in the UK when they. And
You kind of have like oatmeal cookies, that kind of similar to. You don't really have digestive.
why
biscuits over here.
digestive?
I think
they were literally like digestives. You know, like you have them
more
after.
fibre.
Yeah, you have them
Oh, no.
after a
Eat your
meal
food,
originally.
digest your food.
You have cheese on them as well, but they're great. Dunk them in a cup of tea. Gorgeous. You want to try that? Get to one. Honestly, if you get to a British store, they'll
He's
do
never
all
gonna
this
do
stuff.
that.
Curly whirlies, Jaffa cakes.
I mean, I've been to London many times and
Yeah.
gone into convenience stores and just been like, and even worse, fucking grocery stores where you're like, you go into a grocery store in the United States, there are 420 different pre-sweetened cereals you can buy. In the UK, there are 2.
Oh yeah, like
know.
Frosties and another one.
Yes, and
Yeah.
all the aisles are much, much smaller and stuff. Here, it's all about just wider selection of the same shit.
I'm amazed here how hard it is not to have sugar on things.
Yeah.
Like with cereal, I'm looking through where I'm staying now, and I can't find a cereal that's not just a bit of bran, maybe some wheat on a plate. It's all like honey frosted,
Everything
children's
needs to-
shapes.
Totally, because we're raised from children with nothing but sugar.
Right.
What else? What else in the Britishisms?
Uh,
I remember when I saw.
did I ever smoke? Did Tim smoke? I don't know. I think I gave up during this. He
There
smokes.
he is,
He smokes
smoking.
occasionally.
Proof.
What other Britishisms do we have?
You guys don't really say wanker over here, do you? Or twat?
No, but we've heard it enough from
Yeah.
over
But
there.
I've noticed that kind of like you can actually get away with saying wanker on TV because people don't know that it's rude.
Yeah.
Right.
And Americans tend to say twat rather than twat.
Do they?
Yeah.
But they don't even say. I mean, I haven't
That?
heard anyone use the term twat.
Oh, really?
So before you, maybe 5 years ago.
Right. Twat.
Unless
Twat
they were
is
like,
good.
"What? What are you saying?" But not like fucking twat.
Although it's one of those. It sounds very similar to twit.
Does it
and
mean
I
the same
think
thing?
People underestimate its power.
Twat is.
It's probably
pussy.
worth. Yeah.
The magazine
half
that
its pussy.
the magazine in this episode that Daisy's trying to get the interview with is Flaps.
Flaps, which is
Yeah.
vaginal flaps.
All right.
I'm
Which
not going to beat
refers
around.
to
I'm not
the
going to beat
female
around the bush.
Pudenda. Which, of course, sometimes you have to find them.
You with
Flaps. Oh, pudenda. That's another great,
with
a great
Flaps
word.
magazine, you get a free pussy magnet.
Ooh,
Yeah,
It all comes back.
come
Bringing it
on.
I got a
back.
call back in there.
It all comes
Flange. That's another one.
back. I liked your.
Do you say flange over here?
No.
Oh, that's a good one.
Which is what? Pussy?
Same again.
Same again.
Gusset.
I love the fact you've got a crab on your crotch in this. It's just. That was. Am
I
right in
remember.
thinking
Now,
that
there's
was
a
in-
funny thing. I remember that this was the one time when you were filming the scene with that mannequin. What's written on the mannequin again?
What big hard now?
Right. I remember that was the one time that the executive from the network came down to see this scene
Oh,
being
yeah,
filmed.
that's right.
I just remember seeing Cheryl Taylor's face when she's thinking, right.
This is
Yes,
what
it's
we're funding.
It's quirky, isn't it? It's going to be quirky. Really? I just thought it was so weird that this was the one scene that the network executive
You
actually saw
picked
us
that
filming.
outfit right. That's got to
Yeah.
be all you.
Those green and
There's
white
you
stripy
being
leg
serious.
warmers are a reference to a pair of green and white stripy leg warmers I wore as a child that my grandmother from America sent me and I wore. And a particular teacher used to humiliate me in front of the class because I was quite an eccentric dresser, obviously with the green and white stripy leg warmers. Skip to the end.